staff for making this happen. I know it's a lot of work to get this set up, all properly distanced. I would also ask any of you that, like myself, that aren't wearing masks, that if you get up and move around, that you put a mask on. And we all have them. Councilman Smith has extra masks, surgical masks, if
they're a little more comfortable.
And they are more comfortable, and they probably won't fog up my glasses like this one.
They won't fog up your glasses.
So the invocation today is going to be given by Councilman Ball. Thank you. And the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Kim Bordella when we're done. Rob, just go ahead and have a seat. You don't have a nameplate, but pick a seat. All properly distanced. Okay, Tim? Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we now have a time set aside for unscheduled public appearances. Aaron or Tara, are there anybody called in?
We have one individual. It is a number, so I'm not sure the person's name. It ends in 717.
Okay,
Are unmuted.
If they would like to speak, just address the council, state your name, and then you have 3 minutes. How do we? They're unmuted? Okay. So we'll have a slight delay until they join us. Now, is the phone or is the Zoom dialogue piped into the sound system?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And no one's on YouTube Live saying anything either.
Okay, so you unmuted the one person, but they haven't addressed this yet. Okay, well, is there anyone in the audience that would like to give public comment? Seeing none, I will make public comment at this point in time. I would like to thank those that helped open up the playgrounds this weekend. We had volunteers take out the tape. Councilman Smith helped. Councilman Bills and Rodella were out removing tape Saturday morning, as well as Carl Hartman, Brian Braithwaite, and Christian Chevrier. So we appreciate them getting the parks open the first day that we were allowed to, not the parks, the playgrounds, excuse me. So thank you for taking the effort to do that. Would also like to thank our event coordinator, who is not here, Corinne Prestwich, for organizing a parade for Highland Glen Assisted Living Center and Utah State Developmental Center. That was held Wednesday at 1. It was a real fun parade. We started at the high school, south of the high school, went up north to Highland Glen, came back around the backside of the high school on Knight Avenue, and then waited for everybody to be done, and then went down to the developmental center. I will just tell you that there were enough participants that when we got to the light after going to Highland Glen, the last car was heading north on North County. So did you want to add something, Scott?
Yeah, you were on the front page of the Desert News.
Oh, that's right.
The next day. Yeah, it was great.
It was, and I spoke with the director of the development center, Frank Reese, afterwards for about 20 minutes, and he was just gushing at what a positive impact that had on the children, or the youth, and staff, and permanent residents. We liked it so much, my wife made me go around twice. And heard also positive feedback from the director at the Highland Glen Assisted Living Center, that it made people cry. It was really, I cried when I got there because there were so many people there. There were horses, there were classic cars, there were decorated cars with balloons and flags. It was a really touching event. I'm so glad that it got set up.
Can I add something else?
Sure.
So I'm on the governing board of the USDC, and we talked about how much the parade meant to those people, the residents down there, because they've been very isolated. We shut down the USDC about 10 weeks ago, and so they've been very limited on their social interaction with people. Fortunately, there's only been a handful of cases of the COVID there. But I also know with assisted care living like Highland Cove and Highland Glen, that people have been very isolated. And so activities like this, I think, are really wonderful, and we appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, thanks to people that helped on both of those. I really, really appreciate it. And on to our presentation. It's Tony or Dave, or are you both going to do it? Yes, well, I reached for the wipe, and then staff said, oh, no, that's bad, that's bad. So I trust staff, most of the time. Yeah, wipe the mic down first. I think it's on. The green light's on there. And then just the area in front of you there. Yeah, is the green light on the mic there? Okay. All right. Speak. You might have to lean into it a little bit.
Oh, I was seeing green. It's all the green drink I've been drinking to stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you and present this project. My name's Dave Card. I am living in Alpine, your sister city, and Tony lives literally a stone throw away from the borders of Highland in Lehigh. And we are very anxious for this project being a community fitness center for the city of Highland that we hope to joint venture also with the cities of Alpine and Cedar Hills if they desire to participate in that. But bottom line, we are committed to health, we are committed to nutrition, and we are committed to the youth of the community. We have a vision for what we hope to do differently from other fitness centers, and we are excited about presenting this. You can see up on the screen, for those of you who are looking at the presentation, that the look and feel of the community center is it's going to be a beautiful landmark in the city of Highland. And Tony is here to present the slide deck here. Tony is the founder and originator of the concept, community fitness, and the community outreach concept that stems from the Community Fitness Center. And it was my privilege to join with him as his partner and be part of this. Part of my background is I've developed different concepts and helped to promote them. I was formerly the CEO of, if you're familiar with the Fat Cats organization, that recently built a brand new center over in Saratoga Springs. That was under my direction, as well as some new centers going on in the Arizona area. So we're accustomed to understanding what it takes to build a center, to run a project like this, and to have it be successful. with that, I'll let Tony do his introductions and turn the time over to Tony to run you through this presentation. Tony?
It's a new world with all of the safety. We appreciate the precaution the city has taken with this. So our concept really stems around a personal need that many feel. Me as a resident here locally, have felt kind of the pains and needs of a facility and a program like this. So I've got 5 young children. My wife and I like to stay physically active as much as possible. But the challenge is we haven't been able to find a facility, a location that's family-oriented, that's also available for children, that they can kind of come to, and it's a safe environment that's facilitated by a really strong youth-centric program that allows for a lot of unorganized but supervised activity. And so to talk to you a little bit more, hopefully this works. We'll go this way. Okay, we'll just try next slide and then we'll just go forward. Okay, we'll try one more time. There we go. Okay, so we'll go back one. So just a quick understanding of who's involved with this. Dave and myself, we also have a gentleman by the name of Blaine Hell, who is the principal of a local soccer club, Surf Soccer, very integral in the community. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids and families are a part of his program. He's our managing director of programs. And then our advisory board, maybe, we'll see if it goes again. There we go. You'll recognize probably a couple of faces on this board. Dave Ulrich is a local leadership leadership expert. Justin Sua is the mental and strength coach for a couple different Major League Baseball programs as well as NFL programs. He's really focused on youth and the mental development and fortitude, which is critical right now. Ty Bennett, also in leadership, and you're probably familiar with Dale Murphy. Dale Murphy's a recent addition to our advisory board, so we're really happy to have him and his wife, Nancy. So a little bit about our concept. We really focus on bringing the family and the community together, right? I remember when growing up, I grew up here in the Valley, there were a lot of places where I could get together with friends and neighbors, and there was a sense of community. And we found that isn't the case often anymore, right? We're segmented by technology or busy schedules, and so we're trying to find a way and an opportunity for community members to be able to come together and kind of recreate that sense of community that is so strong in so many communities like Highland, but then to be able to facilitate it in a facility like our center. And the main key here is municipalities like Highland, like Alpine, like Cedar Hills. If you were to look at, and I'm sure the city has, we try to advance here, we're usually 10 to 15, maybe even longer years away from bonding a facility of this nature, right? And so our focus is to work together with those cities and to accelerate that through a private and public partnership. And so it's a privately run facility in conjunction with the city to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the city. We facilitate that. But the nice part is it's not a huge burden financially on the residents or the city. If you're familiar with like Provo's Rec Center, that was a $38 million bond for construction. And then it's a $5.5 to $6 million annual operation budget. So it's pretty significant, right? What we do is we have a little bit different strategy. We have the best of both worlds from the public sector and the private sector in our design and how we really structure our project, that it can not only meet the needs of a recreation program like your free weights and some classes, but as part of the facility, we have a full indoor soccer field proposed, basketball courts, indoor zip line and ropes course, a junior adventure course that we'll show you here in a minute. So it's a really wide-reaching and holistic approach to health and wellness. Nutrition, a nutritionist is there. We have a full kitchen that will be part of it as well. So, sorry, I skipped ahead. So some of the benefits, obviously, is we carry the debt load, right? And we operate it as a private facility. It's state-of-the-art. The operations obviously are financially sustainable. There's a benefit to the city, right? We hope to put it in Highland, and so the Highland residents would have a discount to their membership, whereas other residents that we believe will come and we know will come from interest from Lehigh to American Fork, Cedar Hills, Alpine, Pleasant Grove, and even Linden, we think will come over. Some of the benefits, obviously, to the city is we accelerate the opportunity to have a rec center in the city, right? That was a big one. And I think an even bigger one is there's not a cost associated in the realm of the $30 to $40 million, okay? Just to give you kind of a concept of what the facility may look like, obviously, we looked at several different sites. One that we have looked at in detail and have begun negotiations is with the Patterson Group there on the Longhorn property. My kids know it as the Longhorn property, right, as do many others. So right there on the corner of 6800 and SR 92. So this shows the footprint. It's about 9 acres. We'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see the detail of that. Maybe. There we go. And so what's highlighted in blue is the footprint. So you'll see kind of the superimposed soccer field, the ropes course, and then the basketball courts as a part of this. And then the front gray area is a 2-story rec center that we'll show you a little bit more in detail. But this sits on an initial proposed commercial area at the corner that we believe Patterson had proposed, and so we're just taking a section off of that. We'd be doing it independently, so we would purchase from them and then work through the city if things move forward. To give you just a high-level overview of what the facility would look like, some of the elements. Sorry, working the clicker, see if it'll go for me. Okay. So it moves forward and then backwards, so it'll slow down a little bit. Well, you're getting a great overview, maybe not in the right order that we're thinking, but all classes. So our model is you'll have obviously the self-pace that a regular rec center would have, but part of our model that is addresses a lot of the needs is you have a lot of residents who will go to a gym like a Vasa or some other local facility, but then there's specialty needs like CrossFit or cycling or yoga that facility doesn't facilitate. And so you can see here on the left all the check marks of the programs that we provide within Highland Fitness, Community Fitness at Highland. And in comparison to the other facilities around, it's pretty significant. So all of the classes that you would expect, like a yoga, health and nutrition, agility, barre, CrossFit yoga, Zumba, spin classes, we will have as a part of our membership, right? So it's an all-access, one-stop shop for your needs, for aerobic needs. Yeah, Councilman Smith.
So I have a lot of people approach me saying they'd like someplace with a swimming pool. I don't see that listed.
Correct, yeah. That's not a part of our model with the swimming pool. There's a couple reasons why. It's a huge expense, right? It's just not a part of our business model. The expense, the liability, the maintenance, it's not a financially viable project, right? So the cities that we've talked to, there's another city here in the county that has said, hey, we really want to, we want aquatics. It's like, great. The fact that we are taking the fitness element allows you to go then bond for the aquatics if you'd like to do that, but it's just not a part of our business model.
Okay, so that's a negative for me.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of people that are very interested in that, and, as a physician, I really think we need to have more places where people can participate in water aerobics and swimming and things. 'Cause that's something you can do at all ages.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I'm disappointed that it's not included.
Yeah, so it's a different, right? There's certain elements that we can include, some that we've chosen not to. In talking with some of the cities that we've spoken to, they wanted to control the aquatics element themselves. So, for example, I'll give you a great example, Saratoga Springs. They said, look, we want to have the aquatics program run by the city, facilitated by the city, and so they're moving forward with the aquatics. That's not a part of it. So there are some benefits to that the city could obviously...
Yeah, but our city can't afford that, so...
Yeah.
I was hoping this would give that opportunity.
Yeah, great question. So a couple things that are also big pluses here is we offer a digital element, which is very timely in our current environment, right? So with the digital pass, you'll have the ability to access the exercises, the classes as well, within the walls of your home, right? So we have an app that you would access, select, say, a yoga class or a spin class, or even an on-demand class that was previously recorded, and then you could go through and take that within the security and safety of your home. And there are other elements that we're in the development of around this that would allow the city to have direct access, right, in terms of communication to your residents through this app as well. We'd love to co-develop with you, which is, I think, a really exciting opportunity that, especially based off of the current environment, is a real plus. This is an example of some of the adventure elements that will be a part of this. So this is right as you walk in. This is in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a rec center there. This will be your junior adventure course, so young kids, all seasons, when it's really hot outside, when it's really cold outside, or even when the mom wants to get a smoothie and let her kids run wild, this will be a part of the facility as well.
So is that like Thanksgiving Point in
Their Discovery Center? Yeah, very similar. It's a little bit different design, but there are some similarities to it. Yeah, great question. And so you've got state-of-the-art facilities, right? Spin classes, yoga classes, you'll have a cafe and nutrition bar, very healthy options that you'll be able to access there. This is the field house, right, as part of the facility. Within the field house, you'll have, as you saw the layout previously, you have a full soccer field that'll be would be surrounded by a track, so a walking track or running track, indoor track, which is really good here for our area. The ropes course we'll talk about in a second, and then the basketball. So the basketball can serve multiple purposes, right? Basketball, volleyball, pickleball. We've talked a little bit about that with some of the members here of the council. So here's a couple renderings of what the facility would look like. The big element here is there's a huge demand and a growing demand for the youth and for clubs, as well as North Utah County Soccer, to have year-round access to facilities. And so part of our facility, part of our model is to provide that, right? So we're working on that with our model.
So how many teams could practice at the same time there?
At the same time, 8 teams. So skill development would be 8 teams. Obviously, if you're running a scrimmage, you could do a small scrimmage with 4 teams, right? And then there's a really, really big demand in the area for year-round elite type of soccer. So there are several facilities like this in Salt Lake County. There is not a single facility of this size in Utah County, which really limits the access and ability for your top elite athletes to be able to participate in those super leagues, right? But it is, and that's at one time, right? 8 teams at one time. If we break it down, which we will, into skill groups, you can have 8 to 10 groups on a quarter of the field at a time. So you're thinking between 30 and 40 group skill facilities. So think of like a skills camp, a soccer club, or Nukes running a skills camp. You can have hundreds of active participants at the time.
Now,
when we get past the pandemic.
How many square feet is your whole, are you thinking the whole complex would be?
Yeah, good question. So the field house, you've got the soccer field, the ropes course, and the basketball course is about 110,000 square feet. And then the rec center is 52,000 square feet, and that's 2-tiered. So the footprint is about 23 to 25,000 square feet for the rec center. So all in square footage on the footprint, you're looking at about 6 to 7 acres. But if we go back to the overlay of how it sits on that commercial property, there's room up front for secondary retail pads. That'll be a part of that.
So I'm just trying to make sure I'm following your numbers. 110,000 square feet for your field house.
Correct.
And then is it 25,000 for a rec center plus a second tier, another 25?
Correct.
Okay. So that's about 135,000 square foot building, correct?
150,000. So you've got 25 plus 25.
115?
152,000 square feet.
152.
Yep. So 25 for the rec center, and then 110 for your field house.
So your model on those, like, skill camps, would you, like, lease a facility to, like, a surf that would want to run those kind of camps during whenever, and then they take care of everything else, the registration?
That's right. That's right. There'll be some camps that we will run as a facility, right? And there'll be ones that we will lease out the facility.
To help us understand, maybe what the fitness would, like how it might fit or look, do you know how big Smith's Marketplace is?
I do.
How big is that?
The Smith's Marketplace footprint is about 155,
So it
160,000
look about the
square feet.
same as Smith's Marketplace, if you're, because you're 152, so it'd be about exactly, and you're not talking all the retail shops out front,
Nope.
you're just talking the
It's
marketplace.
the building itself.
Okay.
Yeah, so ours, you'll have,
A little bit smaller because 25 is that,
that's right, the
125.
yeah, we'll go back to
How
the-
tall are you thinking then?
Yeah, good question. So each, it's a steel building, the field house, as you noticed, the apex was a steel building. So at the absolute apex, we're about 42 feet. On the corners, we're under eave is 30 to 34, we're trying to determine. So 40 feet at the eaves, 45, it's a pretty low pitch. It meets standards, but 40, 45 feet. The rec center is about the same, right? So 30 to 35 foot under eave. Any other questions from other council members or comments?
I guess just a kind of thought process, just so you're kind of aware, and then this is really early stage, I get it.
Super early, yep.
You're talking a metal building, I don't think we have that in our code at this current time. I think your height, I'm not sure if we, Nathan, is the metal building, am I thinking correct that that's not in our code? And then with the height of 45 feet, would that be a code amendment or an amendment to one of our codes, our development code?
With this, we would have to do a custom zoning district, so all that would be determined at the time.
So we'll go back, sorry, keep skipping around. In looking at the building. So this is a metal building as well, right? So what we do is, it's really a beautiful building, right? But you'll see the 20-foot on-center braces that'll come through, right? So this is the facade, this is a metal building, and we can definitely work within the parameters of what the city code has, but it's not something that would look like a airport hangar by any means. But it would have up to code exterior, interior, and make sure that it fits within the look and feel of Highland City buildings as well.
Actually, that picture there doesn't look dissimilar to standing outside and looking at
Correct.
this building.
Yeah,
That
and
my
that's our intent. Yeah, that's our intent, is to have it match the look and feel of the city, the architecture, the feel, but we save a significant amount of cost in the savings with the type of construction as opposed to a block building or a prefab concrete building, right?
So no basement.
No basement. No basement. Dave, anything else you want to add? Yeah, you bet. That's a great point. So, Dave, for those of you who couldn't hear online, talking about addressing our online segment. So, our app is something that the city, if desired, could leverage within the next few weeks, right? This is not something that we would need to wait for the rec center to go through the process of being built, but we'd love to partner with the city in providing those at-home online exercises and other amenities to the residents sooner than that. There'll be a free element to that, right? Well, you'll have free exercises, but then there'll also be classes, recorded and live classes that we can provide that would be a part of our digital pass, right? A small subscription cost is a part of that.
You know, I know when we actually met and talked a little bit, a couple months back, I think, there was a commitment that you were asking for the city. I haven't heard anything in your presentation of anything, what you haven't asked for the city.
Yeah.
What's your ask?
Good question. With the change in the environment, we'd love to still address that. We're not sure what it is. Obviously, things have changed. The world has changed in the last 2 months. So we are reassessing what that is. We had initially a request for the permit element to negotiate on those permits, right? Because we're providing a pretty significant service and amenities for the city. Also, almost like a lease commitment where we provide the city X number of days a week, X number of nights a year to hold community activities, community movie nights, swap meets, farmers markets, whatever it is, within the walls of the field house, right? A pretty unique opportunity. We're not sure exactly what that is to begin with. We came initially asking for X amount per year and the permits. We'd like to reassess and address those at a later date with the council, just based off of the changes of the landscape.
Relative to the app, what would you be looking for? Where would our help come in that?
Yeah, great question. It would really be similar to the rec center. Our partnership would be an endorsement from the city, right? So we would come in and say, look, if, with the city, this is something you're partnering with a private company to provide a free service, and then if you wanted access to live classes or longer workout schedules and classes and nutrition, then there would be X amount subscription. It would really be the endorsement from the city. A benefit that we would like to provide is a 10% of first-year subscriptions we would then give back to the city as a revenue stream to the city. So a true partnership where we're helping residents get on, having access to at-home workouts, and then there would be a small fee proration, and then a percentage that would go back to the city.
Would you put that in writing and send it to Nathan, and then we can have our attorney look at it and see?
Absolutely.
And then if it needed, we could bring it up at our next meeting, but that's something that we'd need to vet through our attorney. That's behind the mask is Rob there.
No question, yep.
Okay. All right.
One question I know that a lot of people will always ask, and I've asked you when we met, was the financial commitment. Where are you getting your finances to move forward, to give comfort that you're going to be able to even perform? I know that you have to, that's your decision if you're going to be able to build it, but what's your sourcing of finances?
Yeah, good question. So we have two sources of financing today that we are trying to determine which direction we want to go. They've asked to remain anonymous at this point. They are private entities, right, that will be funding as part of our organization, but it will be privately funded, right? There will be debt as well as equity financing as a part of this, right? So we'll be working with a local financial institution that has expressed interest and commitment to work with us, as well as our private individuals. But as we progress further, and again, we're not asking for a yes/no from the city today, but more so, we'd love to bring it out in a public forum, but as we progress along, we'll solidify which direction we'll go and move forward.
Anything else? Any other questions from council members? Kim?
I just want to say, you guys know I like fitness and have always wanted a community fitness center here in Highland, but it's interesting. I'm on the library board, and they have kind of done a community questionnaire and, going about asking some of the political influencers or influential people here in Highland Alpine, just what are the things they like about the area they live in, and what are some of the things they'd like to improve. And it's interesting that every person that they've asked so far, the number one thing they've said is, I wish we had a community fitness center here. There's nothing for our kids, older kids, to do. There's no inside area for them to play in. So I think this is a great concept. Obviously we don't have a lot of money in the coffer right now to contribute to this, but if it makes sense and if we can make it work, I think we should proceed with it and, just keep in touch and see how it works out.
That's great.
I'd just like to make a comment again. I've been on the council 6+ years, and I've had a lot of people come forth and say, hey, we'd like a rec center. But I've never had anybody say, hey, we want an indoor soccer field. What I hear people say is we want aquatics. So I would really have you rethink this a little bit. It may not be something that you're interested in, but that's what people ask me about. Is there a place to go swim or do something? And American Fork Rec Center is heavily used, mainly for the aquatics and things. So I think when people hear rec center, they think that. I think it should be part of it. Indoor soccer field, we've got 9 soccer fields in this community. We're going to probably have 2 or 3 more. Soccer's nice. It'd be nice to be playing it all winter. But there are other things besides soccer. And so, to me, it's kind of a disappointment if there isn't some sort of aquatic part to it. So That's my opinion.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
All right, well, yes, Dave? Sure, got it, you have to step up to the,
To your point, Scott,
this is Dave Card.
I think one of the reasons that we are leaning heavily on the soccer field is not for soccer, but for what it can add to the community. Like Tony mentioned, the swap meets, the car exhibitions, just the things to bring the community together and create that sense of community. So we're not interested in just exercise, but we are interested in building that sense of community. So there's so many things that make that soccer field can make available to the community for your use. So that's what excites us. I mean, all the way from a famous athlete that comes and tells kids how to hang in there and be tough and whatever, and we gather 1,000 people together and we have an event there. It's all the way from that to whatever it might be. But the last comment was, since this online segment of fitness is ready to launch here in a few weeks, we would love to identify with the city what some small need is, whether it's trail improvement or improving the equipment at a particular park, something to where we can say, okay, the funds are going towards this specific project rather than just we're going to give you 10% of what we make. We'd like to promote something specific if that makes sense.
That does make sense. The council, I'm sure, has ideas. If you'll share them with Nathan, we can factor that in.
Great.
The number of good park improvements, like Beacon Hills or...
So Dave, your proposal doesn't just have an indoor soccer field. Does it have outdoor soccer fields too, or is it everything
No.
inside? Everything's inside?
Everything's inside.
Okay, I mean, I assume one of your agreements is gonna be with one of the soccer leagues, that they'll maybe have a commitment that they'll use it so much to help with some of your financial commitments. So that was one of the thought processes.
Yeah, we do have a couple of leagues that are interested in participating with us there, so yes.
Soccer, volleyball, basketball, baseball, and football, football,
Awesome.
Anything else?
No,
Thank you very
that
much.
is, thank you for coming, and thank you for following protocol. All right. Next is our consent items. We have 4 items on the consent agenda. Item A is approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Holbrook Asphalt Company for construction of the 2020 road and trail preservation project not to exceed $361,577.24. Item B is action and approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with M&M Asphalt Services for crack seal work for the 2020 trail preservation project not to exceed $28,000. Then there is approval to replace the heater boiler at City Hall and amending our Chapter 308 of our municipal code relative to purchases and encumbrances. This was talked about last week, and actually there are 5. Action E is verifying the mayor's appointments of Jessica Anderson, Natalie Reed, and Kim Mordella to the library board. Their appointments all expire at the end of June, and this will allow them to continue serving. And the 2 board members, Natalie and Jessica, have served and are willing to continue serving. And Kim, this is her assignment. She picked up Ed's seat, which expires the end of June, and we'd like her to continue as well. Anybody want to pull any of those items, or?
I'd like to pull 3A.
Okay. Any other items? Is there a motion on B, C, D, and E?
I move that we approve the consent items B, C, D, and E.
I second it.
It's motion by Kurt, second by Tim. Electronic voting is running. Is everybody?
I'm not seeing anything here.
I know Tim did the victory sign at the beginning of the meeting. I assume that means he got the app working.
I'll need to vote,
Okay,
orally here, 'cause mine's not working for some reason.
all right, so Scott,
Yes.
Tim? And, okay, we can reveal the rest, so that passes unanimously. Okay, Scott, on item A?
I just have a couple questions. I certainly support, and Stephanie, I want you to put it in the minutes, I strongly support maintenance on the trails and on the roads. I just had a question. I noticed on the map, even though we haven't finished the prioritization of trail needs, that, we delineated some trails as transportation corridors, others as for recreation. And, I was wondering, how the staff determined which ones were transportation and which were recreation. Was there some sort of criteria used, Todd?
Todd, do you want to address that? Yeah, he's hiding in the corner. We forgot to give him his dunce cap, but he's in the corner.
Hold on, there we go. So, Scott, to answer your question, we looked at basically how they function. So we went through all of the trails in Highland and classified them in different categories, basically how they function. We also have categorized them based on condition too. Every trail that you see in the current plan to do a surface treatment are all the ones in the city, regardless of their functional class, that are in really good shape, basically. So we're doing surface treatments on all the good trails this year. And then moving forward, we will do the other ones based on patching or, completely redoing the trails. So right now, we're working on usage, and then we will be able to have a plan very similar to our roads, that there really is, the decision-making is made for us, but because we had money to spend this year, that's what we're doing. We're hitting all the good trails regardless of their functional class.
So that's similar to what we did with roads. Before we had the 5-year plan, we said the most cost-effective way to use our money is to keep the good roads good.
Yes.
Which we got criticized a lot because it seems counterintuitive to put new surface on a good road. But it's really the most cost-effective. So before it fails, you make it good, and the ones you identified were the ones that were in a condition that would benefit from just preserving them.
Correct. And so next year, we'll have a better plan to follow, but this year, trying not to make any decisions from staff's perspective on which ones we should do, we put all of the good trails in there. Now, this budget will actually exceed what we currently have by a little bit, but because we're starting in June and July, we're going to use a little bit of next year's to finish this off budget, and then we'll still have a good portion of money next year to do all the patching and surface treatments, so.
And I appreciate that, and I want to say that I am really happy that we have some funds to do this, because this has been an area that we've needed to work on for a long time. So my second question is the Wimbledon Perimeter Trail was included in this. Even though the council surplus this trail, and then there was a petition to put it to public ballot, it just seems to me that it might be good to hold off resurfacing that trail until we have the vote.
Right.
And so I was just kind of just trying to understand why we're going to resurface it now. I mean, I believe in maintenance, and it certainly needs maintenance, but I'm wondering why we wouldn't wait till the public vote.
100% agreed. We just included all of the good trails that we had categorized as good trails. And the reason for that is because even until we know what we're doing with them, we feel like as staff, we would get reprimanded for not including them, and we will get reprimanded for including them. Either way, we felt like, that's why we have it for, before the council, and we would like you guys to make that decision on what we do and what we don't do.
So you just want input, or?
We want input, yes. We can pull those trails out easily if the council feels appropriate.
Well, I have mixed emotions about it, because I'd like the trails to be improved.
We
But I
did
just think
too.
if we haven't had the vote, I just kind of wonder why we wouldn't wait for the vote, because if the vote goes the other way, then you'll be pulling the trail out. Now, I don't think it will, but at the same time, I'm just wondering, we did
Well,
put it to public vote.
and if you remember correctly, the vote the council had was as soon as the, ditches would be abandoned too, and we're still not there either. It could take us a year or two to get that resolved. And so, for now, we as staff felt like put all the trails in there, and then we can have this discussion. But moving forward, Scott, this will be easier to make these decisions because we hopefully by next year will have a plan to follow.
So Scott, I had the same concern when I looked at the map, and after I digested it, this is where I came to, was, right now, we're still getting good pricing on roads and seal coating relative to the way it was last year, right?
Yes.
So, pricing is good right now. Those trails will be around for at least a year or two. And so including them when we do the whole project and just take care of all the seal coating needs right away, to me is an efficient use of funds. Plus, if we were to exclude Wimbledon, then we would have a little bit of money left. But it's not enough to do a major road work, because just give me nods if this is right, but seal coats are typically 15 to 20 cents a square foot. Anything more than that is $1.50 up to $6 a square foot. So we wouldn't be able to take the residual and do much with it in any meaningful way this year. So to me, it makes sense. It actually, I did the measurements based on what my calculation on asphalt trails are in Highland. This will cover 63–64% of all the trails that we have, which is huge. We'll have made a really big dent. The Wimbledon trails represent about 14% of the trails in Highland, or 14% of what is being done, not 14% of the trails in Highland. But this, of the 59,000 linear feet, Wimbledon represents 14% of that. So I ended up feeling good about doing it, but I did have a big gulp at first, like, what, it seems like a waste of money.
And Scott, part of the reason we included it is, we had mixed emotions as well, whether we should or shouldn't, but we felt like this has been such a hot topic. We've had complaints that we're not doing anything with the trails specifically in that location for many years. We felt like this is something we owed to the residents to get done, even if it lasts for 2 years, to clean them up, make them look nice, make them usable for a few years. And then once the council makes a decision, then we can decide, because it's not all of them that would be removed anyway. It's a portion of those trails.
It's the perimeter trail.
Right. And so that perimeter trail acts as an access for the ditch there, and until the ditch goes away, the trail can't go away,
So I was just a little bit confused from the presentation material, because it seemed like we had put transportation trails and recreation trails, and you defined recreation trails as being around a park. And so it looked to me like you were including recreation trails there too. And I think it's great. I have no problem with fixing them up. I just was confused about, where the prioritization was.
Well, there hasn't been any yet, Scott. All of the trails that you see in that, we didn't look at classification at all. It's strictly based on their condition. All of the good trails in Highland are being done with the surface treatment. Next year's plan will actually look at usage, their category, and the cost. All of those will go into effect next year when we actually have a plan, and then we'll bring back a priority at that point.
Okay, thank you.
So we included the definition so the council knew that where the money could go, and we could document that, just in case anybody ever asked us.
Because some of the money we're spending on this is coming from the sales tax, which can only be used on transportation corridors.
So, Scott, I had the very same issue as you did, and mostly because I think the process matters. And where the previous council had voted to dispose that trail, I had a real problem then with spending money to preserve that trail. And so I've thought about this one a lot. It's bothered me probably more than it should, actually. And I guess what I came down to was thinking that because there are so many issues surrounding, that trail right now, because it's procedural issues and it's the ditch and it's the trail, it's so many different things that it seems like it's gonna take some time to resolve. And one thing that we have said we're going to do is to show residents that we can maintain those trails and keep them up. So for that reason, I'm okay with keeping them in there for now, but, I mean, just for the I do think the process matters, and so that one has been really hard for me to decide what the right thing to do was, because I think it's important to respect what the previous council did, but I also think it's important to respect, the referendum process, so I feel like it's been a tricky one, I think.
I wanna say I'm in agreement. I've thought about this a lot. Scott and Kurt and I actually went and walked the trail today. 'Cause what else are you gonna do but walk trails right now? And thinking about it also, I mean, we saw that it was sprayed, there's been some cleanup along the trail. And so it's kind of like, where do you stop maintaining it? We don't know how long it's gonna go for. Do we say don't don't seal anything, don't do anything to that, but then do we say don't spray it, don't mow it? And so I just kind of have thought, just keep going, and let's maintain it as best we can. That's, the best that we can owe to those residents along that trail.
So Nathan has stepped out. Rob, it might be some questions to help us when, with respect to the procedure aspect, Scott, you're bringing up some very good questions about, I think it'd be good to maybe get an update. We did not see the Peck property, which was asking to maybe, connect to our water. We haven't heard anything back from that.
And you noticed the ditch and how deep it is.
Yeah, and when we walked there, we watched the ditch. We're trying to figure out why there's water coming from the side of the ditch. We don't know if there's a little spring or if it's coming from the field, sinking down and coming in. I noticed that. But I'm glad Nathan's back. But the question is, what's the status with Peck? Have we heard anything from Peck's proposal in trying to connect to our pressurized irrigation? The next question comes in is, as a council, how do we move forward? What is, if it be some legal steps, I'd heard that there maybe needed to still be findings at the old council in December when they did the vote, that they did not do forth with this procedure of findings, that as a council, if we wanted to move forward, we need to still do findings. I think we need to know, is this something that we need to put on the agenda to consider putting up for vote this fall? I mean, there's some questions pertaining to Wimbledon's vote that happened in December. I think we need a little direction, at least maybe some answers. We can't vote on it now because it's not on our agenda, but maybe what's the update on PECs? What's the legal status? Do we need to do anything legally from that vote? What do we need to do with the vote or the referendum? It'd be kind of nice to get a little direction.
So we have not had any contact from the PECs on their request, so we don't have any update there.
Okay. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Would you mind if I have Rob maybe just help out with the one question about what do we do with this referendum? What do we do with the council action?
But is this, let me just ask a quick question. So I just wondered how the trail thing and this particular thing, but now we've gone off on a total different discussion that's not really on the agenda.
That's true. So, Rob, you can answer, is this appropriate for us to talk about now since it wasn't on the agenda?
Because now we're talking about the referendum, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I think it's best that we raise this as an agenda discussion item. Just as a quick point, because the referendum, there were sufficient signatures for the petition to actually be sufficient. Everything dealing with the vote that the council took last year is suspended. So we can discuss what steps can be taken or should be taken, but I think that's a far broader topic than just.
Correct, and we should put that on the agenda. I agree.
Yeah, my only question is why are we spending money on it if it's going to be going to public vote? That was my only thing. I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
I move that we approve consent item 3A, approving and authorizing the mayor to sign a contract with Holbrook Asphalt Company for construction of the 220 Road and Trail I never can say that word, preservation project not to exceed $360,557.24.
I'll second the motion.
Motion by Scott, and I believe it was $361,557.224, correct? That-
Correct, that's what I meant.
Okay.
If that's not what I said.
Just for the record. So it's been moved and seconded. And those that can vote electronically, go ahead. And when they're, Tim, are you able to vote? Okay, Scott, are you up yet?
I'm set up, yeah. Mhm.
Do you want to go ahead and vote? Oh, there we go. All right, we're ready. Passes unanimously. All right, next item is public hearing, adoption of tentative budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021. So Gary's gonna walk through this with us. After Gary's done, and we have, any questions, inline questions taken care of, we'll open it up for public hearing and then close it before we actually vote on it. Okay. I gave Gary time to clean the mic and the podium and protect his hands.
Okay, the tentative budget for this year, for next fiscal year. So not a whole lot's changed since we just had the discussion on April 21st and on 2 weeks ago. But I thought we should go over everything just to make sure there's a complete understanding. But these are the budget assumptions of a 0 salary percent increase. The medical premiums up 5%, dental up 1.9. And we don't have any property tax information. I just checked that today. The certified tax rate with what revenue we're gonna get is still plugged in there from last year. So I'm hoping by the end of the month we get an idea of what that revenue might be, and then we can make a judgment call. But right now I left the property tax collections flat from last year to be conservative, since we've got a lot of questions on the sales tax also. Sales tax collections, we use the Utah Local Government, Utah League of Cities and Counties Economic Study, where they are estimating that next year's collections on the whole will be less than 2.5% than the amount we expect to collect this year.
So what does that mean dollar-wise to us? What's 2.5% equate back to us?
Well, I plugged in $2,408,000. So I multiplied whatever you divide that by.
So that's this year's forecast for sales tax revenue?
This year's forecast was $2,470,000. And then we projected out what we think we're gonna collect next year and multiplied it by 97.5%. I'm hoping that number works out.
And are we looking to come in at projection for this year, or?
Hard to tell. So they're estimating that April, May, and June will be 25% less than last year. So last year, April, May, and June, we collected $632,000 in sales tax. So if you multiply that by 0.75, you come up with
450,000-ish.
And so the sales tax number for May, which was for March, actually was $1,000 higher than March last year. So it made it difficult to tell whether COVID had an effect or not, because I was expecting maybe a lower number, but it was actually $1,000 higher than last year's March, with the money we got in May. So it made it kind of tough to say what's gonna happen.
So the sales tax you're talking about, is that all the sales tax that comes in, or is it divided in between direct and then the shared?
That's all the sales tax.
All
Our
sales
portion
tax.
and then what we get from the state.
Because even though only 25% comes from direct in this city, the Highland businesses, when you talk to them, have never been busier.
Yeah.
So our direct sales tax should at least break even, I would hope. I mean, I've talked to Ace Hardware, Myers, a lot of these businesses have never been busier. So I think the decrease will be in the shared sales tax.
Correct.
I would suspect.
Actually, the ULCT study was based on a 50-50 split, that the city got 50% of their tax locally and 50% from the state, and ours isn't quite that much. But
25-75.
I'm not sure I wanted to go through the detail and try to break that out, what a 25-75 would look like, so
So
we're just trying to be conservative.
Okay.
A recent meeting I attended where one of the state economists was looking at sales tax revenue, there are a number of businesses that were hit really hard, like the hotels, anything to do with tourism.
Car dealerships.
On the other hand, there were other businesses that are killing it. Groceries, online is really killing it. And this is the year that we begin to get the full online sales tax come in. There was the Supreme Court ruling last year. And so they really don't know if there's growth or it's just, we're now getting a share of revenue we weren't getting before, but online is killing it. So with what they showed, the net sales tax was down 0.4%. So that bodes well going forward. This is what's happened to date through the end of March. In April, the economy got hit pretty hard with people getting laid off, et cetera. So we'll have to wait and see. We won't know that till June. April, we won't get till the end of June, after we've already passed our budget. So I expect, since we don't have a crystal ball, we're going to be having budget adjustments throughout the year, positive and or negative.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, do regular updates on revenue, how it's coming in, and projections, and expenses, and have those conversations throughout the year.
So Gary, I guess getting down to I call it the nuts and bolts. If you take so we have some increases on what you're looking at our budget, what do we not have revenue coming in to cover currently what we're projecting in this budget? Are we down 100,000? You know, does that make sense? What are we off, what we're projecting we're gonna have as income versus what we project as expenses?
Yeah, the general fund's showing we're using $100,000 of previous year's fund balance, and so that would be flat collections on property taxes, when we normally probably should collect maybe an extra $50,000 to $60,000. And then sales tax revenue. If there was no COVID, I would have estimated our sales tax this year would have been $2.6 million. So at a 2.4, that shows $200,000 less collecting next year because COVID kicked in.
So as we're looking at our forecast, you know, and Scott, you've kind of always popped this, as we're looking, we notice usually it's in the July or August, we dip down to what, 300,000 in the bank in our general fund. Are you saying we're going to pull that down to 200,000 and go down to 200,000 during that time until we start to grow? I mean, what does it really look like? I mean, did we have the $100,000 in a savings account, or is it just, it's based off of cash flow? Where's this 100,000 coming from?
It's coming from previous year's revenue, so we should be able to weather it. If we only go down, we'll only use $100,000.
So I think last year the dip was down to 500,000. Is that?
Yeah,
my
usually,
graph?
Yeah.
Our cash goes low when we make the bond payment in September 1st, when we fund it in August. So, and this year's bond payment is $1.3 million because it's combined with the PI bond and the park bond, the building bond.
So as we look in August, what will be our cash balance in the, you know, if you forecast that out, we're now down 100,000 there. What will happen in our cash balance in August, September? If you're saying that's our lowest time, what are we looking like?
Should still be positive. I haven't calculated exactly what that would look like, but we should still be positive. Overall, if we ever needed anything, we have $20 million in the PTIF fund, so the overall cash is still sitting good.
So the goal Gary and I have is to have 3 months of operating cash. This won't affect that.
And I guess we're open for questions. You didn't even get through your presentation, did you?
Yeah, hey.
Or is that your only slide?
Yeah. So, first of all, Gary, I want to say I'm really sad that you're leaving. You've done a marvelous job.
Appreciate it.
You've been here, what, 6.5 years, if I remember correctly? Yeah, I think we hired you at the end of my last tenure when I was on the council, and you've done a great job. The one question I do have is we collect property taxes, or, you know, we pay our property taxes in November. The city collects the property tax, over the first 3 months of the year? I mean, right now, do you have all the property tax you assume you'll get, except for maybe some delinquent taxes coming in?
Pretty much, yeah. The number you see on there of the actuals through April of $1,732,000 is pretty much probably, we might get another $10,000 at the most. That would be it.
So the question I have is, the certified tax rate goes up and down. We have the same basic property tax each year, and then the way it grows is by growth in the city. And I was going back through, I've had a little trouble believing that the property tax is going to be flat, because there has been some growth in the city. Are you just being really conservative with it? Because I think it should go up a little bit, because, I mean, I drive around the city and I can see a number of new homes that will be paying property tax this November for the next budget year. Are you just being really conservative, or you really think it's going to be flat?
I'm being very conservative.
Okay.
Yeah, I know from the history of, when they had the downturn in 2008, 2009, the way the property taxes are collected, they give us a 5-year average of what the collection rate is, and that's been running at about 95%.
Okay.
But when the downturn occurred, it was more like 89 to 90%. So if people in Highland have been hit hard and we only collect 90% up front, then we lose 5%, say, of 2 million, so that's, what's that, $100,000, 10%, that's 200. So cash flow wise, we may be down a little bit, so that's why I'm predicting conservative on that. I don't wanna make sure that we spend more money than we get.
So if our collection rate goes down, we will collect it eventually, but for this budget year, our collection rate could go down to not from 95 to 89, 90%.
Yeah, actually, it could affect more because it's a 5-year average. It might affect next year's collection rate, what they give us.
You're
could
just
go
saying
down.
people may not just pay their property tax, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? We do have a work session coming up on the 9th, and we'll have better data then, and we can, if we need to dive into details out, in my view, would be a good time to dig into.
I just had one last question before we have a motion, or if we
Okay.
agreed to that
Yeah.
point, but.
Well, we have to do a public hearing.
Oh,
Well, if
true.
you want to skip the other
But
stuff,
go ahead and
I'm-
do the
I'm sorry.
question. Do the-
So, the Class C road funds, you're projecting that they're gonna be less than what we received in fiscal year 17, 18, and 19. At the 715,000, when I compared, it's lower than those 3 fiscal years. I'm just talking about the last part. But yet the county option transit tax is supposed to stay at 200,000. So I'm just wondering why one would stay at kind of maximum, but the other one would drop. Can you explain why one would drop by $100,000, the other one would stay the same?
Well, the county option is part of, related to more sales tax.
Okay.
So, once again, if COVID hadn't kicked in, I was guessing we were gonna collect maybe 225,000 on that this year. Now I'm guessing we're gonna collect 200,000. So, that could be a number that gets changed after we look at what's happening for the rest of the month. It could go up or
Okay,
down.
so it's linked to the sales tax.
Not
Correct.
fuel tax.
I'm
So
not a fuel tax.
on the
okay.
fuel tax, we're fighting two different fronts. I'm not fighting, lower gas prices are affecting how much we collect, because now part of the state sales tax is a function of the price of gas. It used to be just a per gallon. The other thing is that, gas is not being consumed like it was, because people aren't driving as much, so.
Lot cheaper.
Lot cheaper too.
Once
It's
again,
cheaper and people aren't driving as much, so.
we're supposed to get B&C money probably next week, and that will be for March and April, so it'll be interesting to see what we
What happens to
what
that?
we get from that. And
Okay.
so we can always make another adjustment,
All right, you got more slides?
if you don't want to see it.
Okay.
So, I'm happy to end my presentation, but I think you want to see all of the things. So right now, the way the budget is, we have a net income of $704. I think a lot of it from the last discussion, the public safety budget went down quite a bit, because I think when we discussed this last time, we showed a minus $240,000. And so, we actually estimated the sales tax revenue at $2.35 million in the first budget, and you can see it's up by $2.4 million, so it's up about $50,000. And that with the public safety budget going down, now we're showing we only need to use $100,000 of reserves, whereas before it was like, where are we coming up with $240,000? Right now, the fund balance in the general fund is $3.3 million. That looks kind of high, except I have not made any transfers out of the general fund for the B&C road money into the capital roads fund, or I haven't transferred any money into the open space fund. But if I transfer $800,000, you can see we're back down to the $2.4, $2.5 million fund balance is what we normally run at. Salaries at 0% increase, so basically 1.5 million. Part-time salaries, 282,000, so there's no increase in the salaries for the budget next year. Medical's up, 16,000, and dental up a smidgen, maybe $800 because of the way the 5% and 1% goes, so dental, not too big of an increase there. This is what we pay into the city pays into the 401K and retirement, so $386,000 the city pays into the employees' retirement fund. Once again, this is the property tax, so as you see, the 2021 budget, I left it at $1.758 million until we see the certified tax rate hopefully by the end of the month and see what kind of revenue they plug in there, then we can make a decision on how much of that we think we're gonna collect. And there's the sales tax, so I brought the budget to 2.4 million, that's a minus 2.5% from, hopefully those numbers are correct, from the 2,470,000. That's what I'm forecasting what we're gonna collect this year. If there was no COVID, we probably would have collected at least another $150,000 more than that 2.47 million. Impact fees, Nathan and I talked about this, we went conservative. I originally thought we'd do 75 building permits, but we dropped it to 40. So that's a $156K difference for parks, which also affects how much money we pay into the bond. Now, right now, the impact fees are actually higher than last year. So it could be this year, I can transfer more money out of the park impact fee and the public safety impact fee to pay the bonds, which may mean we get less money out of the general fund, which would be good for us. So we may.
Gary, can I ask a question? So, looking at the park impact fee, it appears about $4,373 per household is paying, like, for a park impact fee. Do we have that always go towards the bond, or do we put that also in a savings account, like in a enterprise account?
It pretty much goes towards the bond.
Okay. Now the question comes, have we forecasted the 600 homes coming over with the Boyer project? Is there a time where we start collecting more money into the parks than what the bonds, what we need to collect for the bond?
It could happen. When I was first here, we collected $730,000 in park impact fees for a $530,000 bond payment. So we collected a lot more, so there was money left over to make the general fund whole. So that could occur, where all the park impact fees could go towards the bond park payment.
So if we don't have, let's assume that we have a really bad year and our permits were only 40 permits, and we have a bond payment of 500 for parks, and we're 172, then we've got to go find that money in the general fund or somewhere to make that bond payment. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. Right.
So what's coming in from our fees are paying towards the bond of the parks.
And then the rest is being paid by the general fund.
Have you, once again, have you forecasted at all, saying, hey, looking at what we've approved, like, do you know how many lots we have not been built on that might, I guess we still have lots that haven't been built on. Do they build it when they pull their building permit, or is when the builder gets approved for the lot?
I think when they pay their all their
permit.
impact fees.
I'm sorry, what?
At building permit, they pay the impact
So at
fees.
building permit, do we know how many lots have not been built on in Highland?
Yes, we can get that.
Just curious. Have we ever forecasted with those lots, if they get built, will that take care of all of our bond, or are we gonna need to come out of the general fund?
No, we haven't done that kind of forecast. No, we haven't.
The other things to consider, though, I believe we're having a impact fee study this year.
Yes.
If that fee goes lower, then of course, if the park impact fee goes from 43.75, whatever it is, to a lower amount, then of course, we're collecting less money, we might have to pay more out of the general fund. So if the impact fee goes to, say, $3,500, now you're gonna collect $800 less per fee, per permit. So then you gotta take that into consideration, and that was not calculated into this. This was using the current impact.
Is that a concern that we might be lowering our park impact fee?
We might. I haven't seen the numbers yet. Actually, the firm that we hired has a little different approach than the firm that did them before. And we'll see how it levels out. We don't know yet. The key parks are a little bit different, impact fees, and how you do that, because usually you have a capital plan and you say, this is your investment and this is what it's gonna cost and so forth. Parks are a little bit different because it's usually based on level of service. And part of the discussion is how much money do we have to continue to invest at that level of service? And it goes back to how you count your improvements that you've done. A lot of our parks were built with developer funds, so they didn't come out of the city funds, so we don't get credit for that. I mean, there's a lot of little nuances with parks that doesn't exist with the other ones. So that's one of the first ones we're doing. And in talking to Fred today, he's working on that and should have some numbers for us in the next couple of weeks.
So Gary, this is a quick related question. Can you just tell us approximately after we make our bond payments this year, how much we owe in bonds?
I don't
Do you
have
have that figure?
that on the
Are we
top of
down
my
to
head.
about 8.5 million or just a ballpark or something?
I can email you tomorrow on that.
Okay, thank you.
Once again, impact fees on buildings and, sewer, so there's a difference in how much money we collect. And pressurized irrigation, so down 91K if we only have 40 permits. If we get more, then of course we're better off, but we're trying to be really conservative. Once again, permit fees, as you can see, 2016, we got a lot of money, 571K and 543 permits at an average of 1,052. And once again, been real conservative for 2021 and basically plugged in the same budget as this year, 280K, 300 permits at an average of 930. If we think that number's gonna change, we can always adjust that again. But once again, I'd rather go conservative rather than spend too much money. This is the enterprise funds. I put in the fund balance there for you. So we got all these projects that we discussed last time. The sewer fund's actually gonna be a net spend $2.2 million greater than the revenue. But the fund balance in the sewer account, so that's almost the same amount as the cash, is $4.707 million. So we have enough money to cover the negative this year. Same with pressurized irrigation. Negative 1.9 expense over revenue, but the fund balance is 4.4 million. So we have enough to cover that. Storm sewer, negative 63, and there's a $1.3 million fund balance. And culinary, that fund balance number is wrong. It's 2.716 million. So we have enough to cover that negative also. So the rates were done 4 or 5 years ago to cover all these projects that were scheduled out. So it's not like we don't have enough money to cover it.
Okay,
Any other questions on the budget?
Is there, there's other capital accounts, we haven't, I don't see, we have capital accounts on some ground we've sold, we have, any capital accounts, we can kind of see, where maybe some balances are at, that we can say, hey, we have capital here, if there's some other projects, or if it's something we need to know that we have some savings that way in those capital accounts.
I think the one you're probably concerned about, and I got a number because Nathan warned me, he'd ask a question on that. The park fund balance right now is $3.7 million. So the capital parks has got $3.7 million. That includes the $358,000 we got from selling the land up here by IM Flash for the storage facility. It also includes the $400,000 we got this year from Lehigh giving us money for
Dry Creek.
Hollow, or the Dry Creek. And that also includes basically $1,536,000 for the Spring Creek sale last August. So, yeah, the capital parks fund has got $3.7 million.
$3.7 million.
$3.7 million.
So,
So you could spend $3.7 million. And the cash in the parks fund is also,
but we have bond payments that have to go out of that, right? Don't the bond payments go out of that fund?
not the capital.
So hold on, how much do we have for parks?
the cash in capital parks is $3.8 million, and the fund balance is
$3.8 million we could spend towards parks that doesn't come out of what we're gonna use for bond payment.
Correct.
Correct. But that includes the revenue from Spring Creek, which is a large portion of that.
Yeah.
That includes the 400,000 from Lehigh and the 359
58 for the,
from, Patterson.
And does that include open space
Yeah,
sales?
where's the open space fund?
the open space fund is in open space. That fund,
So that's a different capital account.
has collected $427,000, and I think I put the money in the PTIF with interest. There's almost $450,000 in the sale of open space.
So,
And remember, we still have to pay Spring Creek. So it's what, $500,000, $600,000, something like that. So you're down to 3.1 right there, and then the rest of it's covered with those large,
okay, so in our general capital account for parks, after we pay for Spring Creek's about $3.1 million. We have about $410,000 that you've earmarked in an open space fund, $450,000 in an open space fund.
That's from the sale of the open space property. There's about $450,000 in that account.
Are there other funds we're not aware of that might have capital accounts that haven't
The
reported here?
capital roads fund basically gets funded by transferring B and C road money out of the general fund into that fund. And that's where Todd, spends
And we
his
pretty much
major
spend that
road
every
projects that
year.
are not in the road fee fund.
We've got,
I'd have to
money
look at the
coming
balance on
out,
that.
on the open space, you got money to finish the courts, and then the, Mercer Hollow little part too. We have to end up, decide what we're gonna do up there.
So the Marshall Hollow that, I can't remember if it was on here, the fee to go and do that lining there might come out of the open space fees, what you're saying? Okay,
That
so
was the decision at the time.
okay, and then we haven't paid for the new tennis
Not all
court that
of
was
it.
just done at Canterbury Circle.
Not all of it. We
Okay,
should
so
be-
that out of the 450, we'll have some things sitting against that.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Gary, what is the park, for the capital for the park, the over 3 million, is that being earmarked for the Mountain Ridge project, or what is that, what are we doing there with that?
That I'm not sure. We collected 1.5 million, actually the sale was 1.9, but we had to reserve, $370,000 for the developer? So
Okay.
that's the 1.5 million. I guess that's up to the city council, how that's gonna get spent.
Mhm.
So the one decision the council made was that 60% of that would go towards the Mountain Ridge Park. We could spend more, that was what they said we had, so that'll be that could be a discussion item later this year.
Yeah, last time we talked about it, we decided to hold off, right, for a little while, so, really have to bring it back up and decide what you wanna do.
Gives us some good information. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we will now open up, the public hearing on this item. Is there anyone on calls that would like to participate and make comments on the budget?
So there are two guests that joined, their phone numbers, they're ending, the first one is 148 and 906.
So if either of those two numbers, 148 or 496,
906.
906, would like to make comments, please do so. And they're unmuted, is that right?
They're unmuted.
And either of our two guests, would you like to contribute any questions or comments? Okay.
I don't have any comments at this time.
Okay.
And there's nobody on YouTube Live.
All right. Well, then we're gonna, absent any comments, we're gonna close the public hearing, and I am ready for a motion. Somebody has one.
I'll make that motion, Mayor, if you'd like.
Sure.
I move the city council adopt the resolution approving the tentative budget for fiscal year 2020, 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So motion by Scott, second by Kim to approve the tentative budget. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote? All right, everybody's voted, and that passes unanimously. All right, next item is item 5, which includes a public hearing. SBGS Regina Holding is requesting approval of a major amendment to Fairfield Cove PD District. The property is approximately 2.85 acres and is located at 10272 North, 4800 West. Tara.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. For your background, May 21st, 2019, the council approved the PD district for Fairfield Cove. As part of that approval, it includes 6 single-family lots with 9,500 square feet of commercial space. On December 3rd, 2019, the council approved an amendment to the PD district in section 3-520 to allow a fee in lieu of a recreational area for the residential district. Major amendments to PD districts need council approval, and this would qualify as a major amendment.
Is there another slide?
Yep. So as part of the major amendment, they are requesting, the applicant is requesting that they are gonna do the fee in lieu of providing a recreational area. So the recreational area would be about 16,466 square feet that they would be required to provide. And so the fee they are proposing offering is $51,680. The fee calculation as part of the amendment was for a tot lot and landscaping. So the landscaping is about 14,800 square feet. It would also change the lots. Instead of being a community open space, which was what the PD district was previously approved as, it would change it to more traditional single-family lots where they can have private yards to maintain. For the commercial district, the setbacks did change on that one. The front would be 20 feet, the sides would be 5, and the rear would be 10 feet. UDOT did say that they'll review the access on North County Boulevard at a later date when they submit the site plan. Also, when they submit the site plan, they are going to do a theme wall along the commercial district and the residential district as part of the site plan process as well.
I've got a question, quick question. I don't understand the 5-foot side setback. Is that 5 foot from the property line?
From the property line, and the applicant is here as well to address that question, the reasoning why they're doing that.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about that.
So, before you go on, wasn't there some discussion in Planning Commission about a 29-foot front setback?
So the 29-foot would be the landscaping. So that's part of our ordinances, that there's that 29-foot parkway detail along North County Boulevard. So you will see in here, there is a stipulation requiring them to do that as part of preliminary plat, and we will discuss that later. They did submit updated landscaping plans during preliminary plat demonstrating that. So staff has reviewed the proposed fee that the applicant has submitted, and we have found that is consistent with section 3-520.5E of the Development Code. The side setback, as mentioned, it will decrease down to 5 feet, whereas the previous one was 25 feet, which would allow more spacing. The 25-footer would have allowed more spacing from the trail. And then, as a reminder, UDOT will be reviewing the access at a later date.
So, and the reason for the 5-foot setbacks was to allow them to do separate buildings? Is that to give them space to do separate buildings?
You know, the applicant's here to address that. I can't recall, and I don't want to misspeak on that one. But there was logic
Now,
for
Tara, we have here on the bottom, says UDOT will review access. Are we stating at this time, we do not know if UDOT's going to grant the commercial space access onto North County Boulevard?
So they're gonna grant access, they just don't know where. I think it's gonna be more closer to the vacant lots.
Okay.
So that way you can use, so that way when they come in, they can use the same access.
Okay, so there will be at least an access point along North County Boulevard for that commercial space.
There will be, yeah. For citizen participation, they did do a neighborhood meeting on March 27th. 6 residents did attend that meeting. We did the appropriate notifications for Planning Commission and City Council. We've received 1 written correspondence. He did send 2 different correspondence, but it was the same individual. And we did conduct a Planning Commission meeting on April 28th. We did receive 3 residential comments. The draft minutes were included in the packet for you as well to review. The commission voted 5-1, and I want to apologize. In the packet, I said 5-6, so 5-1.
I thought we'd expanded the planning commission.
Yeah. To recommend approval. They did have 8 stipulations. Stipulation 5 has been addressed with the UDOT email correspondence, and stipulation 7 has also been addressed because they provided a commercial concept plan for you to consider. And stipulation 8 should be revised to the fee of $51,680. For our recommendation, staff recommends that the City Council hold a public hearing, accept the findings, and approve the proposed amendment subject to the 6 stipulations as recommended by Planning Commission. And then the motion will be on the next slide, and the applicant is here to address your questions.
Okay, so any questions for Tara? We'll go ahead and have the applicant.
Garrett Seeley representing SBGS Ridgeline Estates. So, to answer a few of the questions that came up, the setback on the building for the commercial, the 5-foot setback, the reason being, as you said exactly, was to have up to 9,500 square feet, so you could have two buildings on there. If it's that big of an issue, I'm not too terribly disappointed if you say it's 25 feet. It doesn't bother me.
It's 25 feet.
There you go. Doesn't bother me.
The reason why I say, the concern I would have is, I think Scott brought, you have a trail there, and so if we're gonna get really close to the trail, it just seems to kind of make that trail more narrow.
So that plan right there is actually a 9,500 square foot building, and I wanted you to see the footprint. Likelihood, because it's gonna cost more, is you're gonna shrink that down to the 4,500 square foot building, which is naturally gonna pull you away from that. So, and do 2 stories versus 1 story.
Yeah, I'm not locked into particularly 25 feet. I just wanted to understand the 5-foot. I know the people that live south, the Hogarths, quite well, and he's told me that they're happy with that, actually, because they have a field between that and their house, and they plan on developing at some point. I just wanted to understand if that was from the property line, and if it's to give you larger buildings, I'm a little uncomfortable with 5 foot, but, I'd be happy maybe with the standard 10 or 15 or something, if that's a possibility. I don't know, do we really need to go 25?
I would be flexible with Scott too.
Yeah.
You offered the 25, so I figured grab it.
That's perfectly
And so if you had not, I think we could be flexible.
Let's compromise at 15.
Yeah, 5 seems too small, but 15 is reasonable, because most setbacks in the city are 10 at least, aren't they, Nathan? 10 to 15?
They're 10 on one, and then the next house has to be 15.
For a house, yeah,
Right,
commercial's
and
different.
house.
Commercial's different, though.
Okay, what
'Cause you don't
is
need
the standard for
separations.
commercial?
It just varies based on the district you're in.
Okay,
Usually what you'll have is if you're adjacent to a residential area, you'll have a minimum setback for a landscape buffer, and then you'll have the road, the drive aisle, and then you'll have the building. So as long as you make it the building setback, I think that gives them, plenty of flexibility if they have to get all around for fire code or things like that.
So maybe my concern is the trail. This is unique when you talk about, so where is the property line in commensurate to the trail? Is
About
it,
5 foot off.
so it's
we have
5 foot off, so a
20-foot
zero
trail
lot
corridor.
line would be 5 feet
No,
from the trail?
no.
From the trail, it'd be 10 feet. You got
if
5
it was
foot
at 5 foot, yeah.
landscaping to the property line, and then you have another 5 feet for the building, so it'd be
Okay.
So
a
the
10 foot
trail's
offset
in a
from the trail.
20-foot corridor that we own.
Okay.
And
Trail's
so it's
10
about
feet.
5 foot, more or less, between on both sides with it in the middle.
So the 5 feet that's proposed is really about 10 feet from where the trail's at?
The actual asphalt.
Right. This is a trail we're gonna resurface too.
Is there a wall gonna go on the north side? What's
Yeah,
gonna
we
be
could-
on the north?
We get
We
killed
didn't
if we
propose
got rid
one,
of that one.
because we'd like to landscape it and maybe put our amenity or something back there so that you can access that.
Okay.
So if it,
So that means it'll be really open as opposed to, there's a fence on
the fence that we're proposing is to the east,
not on
between the
west side.
residential district
Okay.
and this, not to the north.
So that makes it more open. right?
That's correct.
How close would the building be to where the trail's at? That's, is it 10 feet off of the trail?
The
You got your
asphalt,
five-
it'll be
As
about
it's written
10
now,
feet.
it'd be 10 feet off.
But
From
if we
the
make it
asphalt.
wider, it'd be more.
Say that again,
So
Scott?
if we make it 10 or 15, it'd be
Okay.
more, see.
It was just us talking. I'd love to hear the other council on that.
I just am in agreement with Kurt. I think the more space between the trail and the building, the better. I mean, just walking trails in residential areas, you understand why there needs to be some space there. So I'm in agreement with Kurt.
How wide? How far from the trail edge is wide enough?
15 feet.
From the trail, or 10 feet, so another 5 feet, or 15 total?
What's gonna work for you? I mean, I wanna be like, usually you're not very flexible. Scott, you brought, what do we really want as a council for the building? When you said your building, what's your footprint, your 9,500 square foot footprint? If we said your property line 10, and then we have another 5, so it's 15. Does that keep your building footprint you're trying to work with?
Yes.
Showing that we're trying to work with you.
Yes, it is. That
So-
works.
So that would be 15 feet from the trail, which is 10 feet side setback. If we did 15 feet, can you still build the 9,500 square foot building?
My worry is that you lose parking on that, where number 7 is, because now you're starting to push into the Hogard property for access. That's my worry.
So I think you need to find a balance here, because it's nice to have that trail corridor, and, you know, put this in minutes, I love the trails. But at the same time, we need the commercial to generate sales tax to help pay for the trails. So I think we have to find that kind of balance. And, you know, I think we ought to be able to find some sort of compromise here. I'm a little uncomfortable with just 5 foot, but I could go for 10. I guess Kurt likes 15, you know.
10 gives you
yeah,
15 from the trail.
from the trail, yeah.
From edge of asphalt, so it'd be a 10-foot setback.
So, and 15 feet from the asphalt is about from Kim to, I
think
forgot,
that's
I
about
forgot your
right.
name.
And that's a lot of room there, I think, because I'd like to see you be able to develop some commercial there.
I agree.
All right, any other questions or comments for the developer?
Probably not for the developer. I have a couple of questions as it comes.
So let's go ahead and open it for public hearing. Is there anyone online that would want to comment on this issue? Looks like Tara's giving me thumbs up.
This is Wade Hadlock. I'd like to make a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Wade, we can hear you.
I did send the 2 emails in. The main thing I wanted to talk about was, we've been going at this for over 1.5 years now. I'd like to see the city council approve it so the developer can get going. He's worked with the neighbors and made some changes at our request before it even went to the planning commission. So I wanted to point that out there and just give that into consideration. One thing that's been talked about but didn't make it into any of these documents is the question of whether or not the residential should be part of the open space district or not. It was explored and determined that it could be done. It doesn't say here that it will be or needs to be or anything like that. One of the reasons I'm proposing is because the lots are quite small, and most homes in Highland with lots that small have an HOA fee or an open space fee. They'll be using the open space neighborhood. Our particular open space neighborhood is not as dense as some of the other ones. But if you finish it out like you're doing with this lot, the remainder of the PD lots, if they go at the same density, then this will become one of the more dense open space neighborhoods. So it'll have more revenue for maintaining the open space. So I threw out the idea of a stipulation that the developer requests to have the 6 lots added to the open space district before selling any lots. That stipulation would mean that there would have to be another public hearing through the planning and the city. It wouldn't stop him from starting his development, but I would like the city to consider that, adding those 6 homes to the open space district. If these 6 don't get added, it would be really hard to add the next ones. I know it doesn't matter if the open space fee is going away, but I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon. So I'd like you guys to consider that. And then the last thing is coming up in a later agenda, so we can address it then. But I do think because the people paying this are these 6 homeowners, it would make sense to spend a good portion or all of the fee in the Wild Rose Park for the benefit of those homeowners. But yeah, please consider, or at least address for us in this public meeting, the open space fee, the $20 fee on these lots. That's all I have. Thank you. Hi, this is Felicia Marshall, also from the Wild Rose neighborhood. And I think Wade covered
all of my thoughts on it as well. I would like to point out that the developer's been very amenable to the residents here, and I would like to see his amendment approved.
This is Brett Burns, and I'm adjacent to some of the new homes going in, and I also want to make the same comment. Gary's been great to work with. He's considered things that we've proposed. We're glad to have the development and happy that it works out. I also support the proposal that Wade Hadlock just referenced in regards to adding this to the Wild Rose open place plan. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
you were muted.
Oh.
I apologize.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind restating that.
All right.
That was on purpose. No.
Ah, maybe I was muted the whole meeting. We have to redo the whole meeting. So anyway, with respect to whether or not these homes become part of the open space fee, we can have that be part of a final plat approval decision. And I think it would be good to talk about it either a little bit tonight or at a future meeting, or between yourselves, between now and a future meeting. It's something worth talking about, but a potential good point to insert a decision there is final plat approval, since we can't do it tonight. All right, absent any other additional comments, I will close the public hearing. And Scott,
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add to what the mayor said. And I agree with the neighborhood and things. I've given this example before. As we go through this, I would like to see these 6 homes as part of that open space neighborhood too, and I'll tell you why. I live in a PUD development down in Pheasant Hollow, which is usually the nexus of the world, I've found, with everything going on. But anyhow, there was a little neighborhood to the north that was developed a few years later. And the city council at that time, and this is 20 years ago, voted not to let them be part of our HOA, part of our neighborhood. And that's always been a source of contention for years, because they don't feel obligated to pay anything towards the park or any of the other things. And they're good people, I'm not saying bad things, but to me, if you've got these new 6 homes, the only way they can come into their homes is go through Wild Rose open space at this particular time. That park's there. It seems like the funds hopefully will go towards that park. So I think they should be part of the neighborhood and pay the open space fee. Now, I think we need to find a way that they could be annexed in. And I think when the Hogarths develop their property in the back someday, that would be just make good sense. So I'm just talking about common sense stuff if it can be done, because I just hate to see us make decisions that cause a lot of problems 20 years down the road, like it has in my neighborhood. And of course, we always have to make decisions that do things like that. But I'd just like to put my vote towards letting them annex in as part of the open space neighborhood. So that's not part of the motion today, but.
Any other comments on this particular?
I think it also makes sense. I would like to know, before we have that discussion, if there are any legal issues surrounding that, especially in light of the Pleasant Grove decision about their road fee. So I guess that's the question that I would like to have answered before we make a decision about that.
So that's on the to-do list there.
So can I just ask a question? Are you assuming that if Pleasant Grove loses their appeal for the road fee, that's going to affect our open space fees too?
I just had a conversation with Nathan where he said that we need to be able to justify a specific benefit to that community where they are not, as directly attached to that open space. Is that correct, Nathan?
That's correct. Anytime you charge a fee, you have to have a nexus between the fee and the service. And with no open space that we're maintaining within that subdivision, that nexus is a little difficult to
but they're paying for their open space into that, maybe into that open space park. So indeed, they're, you know, I think you could make the argument for that.
So
Yeah.
Nathan, maybe, I'm trying to really think through this, because I asked that question earlier of you. So what you're saying is we have two different developments. I mean, this is how I'm trying to understand it.
Correct.
There's two different developments. What we're saying is we're gonna allow one development to pay a fee, and then we're saying, hey, do they wanna annex an open space? And we recognize we have an open space next to it, but by them paying that fee, how does that do they have to have a benefit, and that they're not part of that subdivision of Wild Rose? So
Correct.
one question, could they make an application to annex into Wild Rose? I get, that would be a whole other application, and then they would just be at Wild Rose B. I don't know if that's possible, or if they
This is one of the reasons why we thought that having the discussion specifically about this, when we were able to see what Pleasant Grove does, see all the other impacts, and see where we are, would be beneficial, so we could actually prepare and have good answers for you. But I'll let Rob jump in here a little bit. We've talked about it a little bit.
So can I ask a question before Rob starts? That is, had, and maybe the developer can chime in, had the developer developed the little park with a tot lot there, would there have been an HOA fee associated with maintaining that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
This is kind of like their new HOA fee, I don't know.
I'll just throw a monkey in the wrench. I'd say that you get rid of it on the fee on the Wild Rose and have them be normal.
And thank you for your
Thank
input.
you for contributing in a positive.
The potential tricky issue is, like Nathan was saying, when you charge a fee as opposed to a tax, you have to have a service related to that. And so a lot of these, well, all of these open space or subdivisions is a benefit both to the original landowner and to the ongoing residents. Without getting political, I know there's disputes about the extent of those benefits, but that is the nexus between the fee and the benefits for those districts. This is a slightly different situation where there's not going to be a specific open space, though there is, by and large, open space nearby that is being funded through this. So it's to speak in a mask.
You can take your mask off. You're
You
distant.
can take it off.
Myself.
Okay.
We'll use ours.
So without giving a formal legal opinion right on the spot right now, we would want to look at and be able to have a discussion that we can say, because this district benefits from the open space in these ways, because it is voluntary, we can connect both the fee, the participation in the district, to those benefits. Those would be findings that we would want to make as part of an approval of a final plat and an annexation into the open space district. If we cannot do that, we should maybe be more hesitant about annexing it in.
Well, Rob, let me just ask this question. So I guess I'm a little perplexed about this discussion. So they're appealing Pleasant Grove's road fee, but you're saying that if they lose that appeal, that affects all fees? If we can't prove a direct service? I mean, obviously garbage fee and sewer fee, we have direct services, but we have open space fees, we have a road fee, and you're saying that may impact all of those fees?
Well, it may impact it in the sense of it is another piece of precedent that directly applies. Now, whether the situation is one-to-one such that, oh, the same ruling that applies to Pleasant Grove applies here, that may or may not be the case. However, there's somewhat limited precedent from the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court interpreting kind of the distinction between fees and taxes and how specific you have to get. I mean, their main case was a decade plus ago that we're relying on. So Pleasant Grove case, even though it may not be specific because all of our fees are slightly different for numerous reasons, and that may mean the ruling doesn't apply to us, but it is one of those kind of points that we'll look at to say, well, this is what the court said here, so when we do it this way, this is how we justify it. Or maybe we can't justify it, so it's just another data point for us to
So
look
we've
at.
got to have more discussion, obviously.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is tonight, we really cannot consider,
Well, we can't, it's not on the agenda, for one.
yeah, okay, so that, what we need, we can't, you know, we've had some input where people would like to have us maybe consider to have this new development come into an open space. That's really not that's not something you're recommending we try to decide tonight.
No, I mean, it's good to discuss and, have that discussion, start thinking about it and weighing the options. However, the final decision should be made when we've had a full opportunity to kind of present the pros and cons, where we can make specific findings that will explain why or why not that should be part of the open space district. But a discussion is warranted as part of, I think, the next agenda item, but touch something.
Okay, so any other discussion on this particular point?
Is this, no, not on the open, having it go into open space, but on,
No, on item
On this
5.
motion.
so is this motion saying that we're agreeing to the 51,680?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then I have questions on that dollar amount. Do we know, so it appears, so is it 14,800 square feet that they would need to approve to come into, like, if they would have done 20%, is it 14,008 or 14,002?
It's actually 16,000, and change, 16,280, I believe, is the actual 20% open space that is required. That 14,000 number is the actual sod and sprinkler.
Okay, maybe
When
that's,
you less out the playground and or the sidewalks and all that kind of stuff.
okay,
That's
okay.
the amount that's left.
That's where I was getting confused. I saw the grass
Understandable.
amount, and so it's 16,208 would be the square feet that should be that you would have as open space.
That's correct.
So then, and this is more of a staff question, as I'm looking at this, we're charging $1.25 for seed, sprinkler and that is, and we didn't have any bids. I was trying to look at our Spring Creek to see what our bids came in. Is that what we have gotten bids for when we went and done other parks?
So we did a comparison, and Tara can jump in here. The difference is, as we've talked about in the past, is a developer can, with his contacts and stuff, can actually get it cheaper than what we can.
Okay.
So in looking at the bid, Todd reviewed it, we looked at it, we felt that it was appropriate for that size of area.
Okay, then my next question comes in, if it's supposed to be 16,208, I see that there were, for property value, that we are accessing, that we're saying that that property is valued at 18,000. How did staff, or $18,104, how did staff come up with that dollar amount to equate what the property value was?
So with these, we asked the developer to provide it. We did not use a residential finished lot value because it wouldn't be a finished lot. So we just used land value, based on on input, and we felt that it was reasonable.
And I will share, I don't believe it's reasonable. We've had an appraisal on open space, it was over $3 a foot. Scott, do you know what the USDC actually received, or even Pheasant Hollow? And I don't know if Pheasant Hollow agreement's done, so if not, you can't disclose that, but what did USDC sell their ground for the road or for some of the trail space?
Well, we had 4.3 acres plus 1.5 acres with an easement, and they got $1.2 million. But I can't tell you exactly what that is per square foot. And, I think it depends on where, that's open field area. So I don't know what Pheasant Hollow is getting. I have not been part of that discussion.
I mean, my concern is, as a commensurate, it appears that we're putting a value of less than $1 a foot on ground. And that's lower than what we ever sold any open space for. It's lower than what any appraisal we've come back in on. I appreciate giving a good deal, but I think this is a little bit of a favor being done.
Tara's got some information for you, and then
So-
Garrett can address that.
Yeah, so, we looked at Spring Creek, comparing their previous proposal, and it was about $4.16 per square foot for landscaping in the playground for Spring Creek. And that's 2.32 acres for Spring Creek Park. So at $4.16, the fee would have been $68,498.
And so why are we, so why are we not charging that? Plus, we have ground. I'm just bringing up some concerns financially with this proposal that the ground is supposed to be, 16,208, and then you're saying, Tara, we're supposed to be at $4.16?
That's how much Spring Creek was.
But we know we paid more than the developer would have charged us, or
Correct.
a pretty fair amount more, so
So, Kurt,
that's
do you
why
have
we
a,
think his
yeah.
landscaping bid is appropriate.
Really, your negotiation was with Garrett, so Garrett, why don't you jump in and answer that?
Well, I'd like to know what Councilman Osler thinks they should be paying. Do you have a figure?
Yeah, I think on the ground, we have an appraisal at $3 for open space. We're talking about this being a dedication of open space. I think it should be at $3. We can look at the value that the council's put, or the staff's put on for all the other improvements, but that's kind of where I'm leaning on, because there's a ground value here.
Is that improved or is that vacant?
It was our open space that we've sold to residents.
Is it improved or vacant?
That was probably, it could be our native vegetation that we sold to a lot of residents. So it was unimproved.
So you have trails on there too, right? Some of the areas had trails.
A lot of ours did not have trails. We've not really sold any ground with trails. Most of our open space and our bid did not include the trail. It was really for what the open space was at. I'm bringing up, this is a concern.
And the orphan property's got $1.40 with no, and the trail, when we went, we got up to $2.80 or something.
And then we received an appraisal. We've had some cells, I think we had, I don't know if we had, but we have an appraisal that is showing us it's supposed to be at $3. That was in December 2018, and so, and I just know as we look, we got the USDC that has sold some ground, and I imagine they got more than $3 a foot. And if you say some of it's easement ground, where you don't even own it, you're buying easement. And I understand the state.
Ground.
That's where I'm at. I'd probably say, hey, if we're at $3 a square foot, plus what the city's coming back in here for landscaping and things that way, then I would probably be okay with the buy-in.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna pay $4.15 a square foot to improve it. I can do it for much less than that.
No, I don't think it's the $4.50. It's whatever the staff came up. What's the dollar amount you came up with as staff?
So for Spring Creek, it was $4.16.
What is it
for
here?
theirs, for,
What's the proposal?
For his, it'd be $3.14.
So 3.14 is what we're saying is an entrepreneur value for you to be able to go do that. Then you still need to buy the ground. At $3 a foot is what our appraisal's at.
And I think I'd be better off going back to zero lot line. So I think this is more than fair, because most of those open spaces that you're going to do, and I can't speak for the rest of the city, but especially here, where it's gonna be tucked away and never get used, I think that ground becomes much less valuable. And so, I can understand your justification, but I also think what we're trying to do on 6 homes, where you're adding another $12,000 per door for open space?
I think it'd be, so right now, they're charging on the proposal, so what it came out, it was $18,104 is what they have in, so that you're just gonna, whatever the $3 is for the $16,208 minus that $18,000, the 104.
So I'm
So
gonna
it's $16,466 square feet total.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, then that would push me, what's the total amount that you're coming to then?
And let me back it out for you then. 16,208 square feet, correct?
Right.
At $3 a foot.
Tara, what was the?
$16,466 total.
Okay, 16,466. So 16,466 times $3.
This is close to 50,000.
49,398.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna add in the 17,750 for the sod, or the sprinklers, 1728 for the tot lot curb, 2465 for the sidewalk to the tot lot, 11,633 for the rubber chip install, makes it 82,974.
You're adding
well, it's 51 was what was proposed, so it's
30,000.
32,000. I'm only one council person, that's how my thought comes in. I'm just trying to be fair to all the Highland residents, that we've said if they're gonna go buy open space, and it's what we have a appraisal for, and that's what we've done our open space at.
But it's also based on the value of the land that's already built, right?
That they're gonna build, no, they don't get, the open space
No,
isn't buildable.
when we do the calculation, it's based on the value of the property in that subdivision with homes already built on it.
We do it part of the county property tax,
And 25% of
yeah,
that.
25%.
But at the same time, Kurt, and I understand your discussion here, I don't want it to be so expensive for the developer though, but we've sold open space in the past at $1.40. We've sold it at $3.13 up in Beacon Hill. I think, the Wimbledon Trail was what, $2.80 or something, $2.40. But, I think we maybe need to find a little compromise. I think you'd feel more comfortable if this amount he was contributing was a little higher, but I'm not sure 80,000 is, it's a deal breaker in a way, isn't it? I think we have to kind of find a compromise.
Well, what do you mean by a deal breaker? It just means that they go put the open space inside the development, which is what their code requires.
Yes, and then you
But
get,
they'd have to have
then
an
you get a
HOA to
townhome
maintain it, and
development.
it's not accessible to everybody else, and,
It changes the setbacks,
yeah, it changes all the
makes it
setbacks.
less desirable for the neighbors.
I'm just bringing up my concern.
Well, I think it's a valid concern, but I'm just wondering if there's not a compromise in here.
I just wanna hear from you on what you think of that number.
I came in a lot lower than that before. And working with staff, I believe I came in at 41,000 before. It's what I proposed because of the last city council meeting in December when you talked about 245 and which has caused the referendum and all these different talks that are going on. That's the number I used going into it, which puts me at 41,000. And then after working with staff going back and forth, we got it up to the 51,680.
Well, so you came in at 245, that's just for the ground. I mean, that, if you're,
That's improved ground of what I believe, from what I gathered and read through the minutes on that city council meeting, improved ground was $2.45. That's the number I used. Staff said, that's not gonna work. So, that's where I started, and now this is where we've ended. And those bids came in, and I understand where you're coming from, I totally get it, totally get it. What I also wanna see, on a couple more items down, the discussion of where this money is gonna be placed. Is it gonna be placed in this park? And what the citizens want, and how it's gonna be used to benefit that park? I think there's a lot more that goes into this, but $80,000 is not, it's way too much money. It just is.
So, Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Absolutely.
Dr. Hogard, who owns all the property adjacent to this, was late for his appointment for the public hearing. Would he like to make a comment? I mean, he owns the property on the south of this, maybe.
I just own the property south. This is kind of very similar to what we've looked at before. I'm just kind of seeing, where's this open space you're talking about? Is it in the Wild Rose Park, or is it the green space drawn on that map up there?
The open space that's referring to is,
That you're just
he
talking
took
about?
a small HOA maintained open space out of his development, which let him do different setbacks for the neighbors. And in lieu of doing that, he offered to pay the city, $52,000 roughly. So
Okay.
what we're talking about now is that amount.
Okay.
The other people that commented from Wild Rose were in favor of the motion. We're grateful to the developer for making comments.
I would have to vote in favor of the motion also. I will own the land just south of him, and I probably share the largest border with him, and what I've seen, I think it's a very positive thing. I would do that. I would hope they would be, and I don't know if it's part of the discussion, I would hope they would be part of the Wild Rose development, but it sounds like there might be some question if that's legal or not, but that's
So
too bad.
that'll be another meeting, but
That's a
good to
different
know
meeting.
that
I would assume if you developed your property, you also maybe would like to have the same treatment, maybe having if you put residential back there, to maybe have it be part of the Wild Rose if we agree to it here. Is that correct?
That's what I would assume. I'm not ever planning to develop, but my kids, I guess, would do that.
Well, and the bottom line is, Timo, that if we allow, this development to pay a fee towards the city rather than develop green space or, common space in his area, you would be held to probably the same precedent is basically what would it be.
It just makes
Yeah.
it, what's the planned urban, what's it's called, the,
It's open spaces.
right, open space, but this is a kind of a different area when it's,
But PD has
more-
open space as well.
PD does, okay. But I just would vote and say I'm in favor of what I see, and you guys have to decide what's good, but that's my point. Anything else?
No, that was.
All right. Okay.
Any other comments, on this, on the land value portion of this? So to summarize, Kurt says, let's do $3 a square foot like we have for other open space areas. The developer came in thinking, $2.45 a square foot for improved ground, which most of Wimbledon was. You know, all the grass areas between the homes and, the grass areas up to the trails, those are all improved, the detention basin. And so he came in with that as an amount and then negotiated with staff and came up with a value $10,000 more than his initial offer.
I think the Wimbledon property would have been already improved by the residents. I don't think the city went in and put the improvements in. I think it was the residents. But if we
Correct.
were gonna sell it, it would have been the residents we were selling it to.
Well, yes, correct.
It's a hard one. I mean, I can appreciate what Scott's saying. We get to a certain point, do you want the money? Do you want them to put in a 20%? You know, code says they need to put 20% there in their development. The developer's offering to pay a certain dollar amount. I have a concern. I don't know if we're, you know, to say, hey, you know, we're instead of getting 16,466 square feet of open space, you know, we're allowing them to buy in, and what's the dollar amount to buy in, and have to justify back to us.
How much was the tot lot dollar?
So you have open space, park and landscaping with seed and sprinklers was $17,750. Curb wall with tot lot was $1,728. Sidewalk for the tot lot was $2,465. The tot lot complete with rubber chips installed was $11,633. And then they put the property value, which is the 16,466 square feet, property value at $18,104,
So
is what the city staff was.
The tot lot was another 14 to 15,000, all inclusive on the tot lot. Which, yeah, I don't know, this is just me talking, okay, but I don't know that would have been, there was no requirement on what the open space needed to be, right? It could have just been grass.
Is that correct, Nathan, in the code? Could they just put grass in?
The recreational requirement, and I can pull up the exact wording, I think you need to offer
Something, pavilion or tot
some
lot or,
barbecue.
no, it can't just be grass.
Yeah, let me pull up the exact
Okay.
code for you.
So I guess, my question, I guess, back to the applicant, is there some flexibility in this 51,680? You know, do you want us to continue it to come back? Would you like to maybe see if there's a number we can come to? What would you like to do?
I'd like to come to a number. Let's figure this out. I don't want to keep coming back. As you know, time is money, and I'm sitting on a lot of it right now and I'd like to get moving.
I mean, I see, so Scott, the kind of, you know, with the rest of the council, I see this tot lot. I mean, it's hard because I know the city is paying $4.16, but I recognize an entrepreneur spirit can go out there and get bids, you know, do certain things. So I think they've done it for the 314. Is there a number you're thinking? You know that I came up with, you know, or at least when my figuring was about 83,000. Is there a number you're thinking you can work with and that we can discuss as a council if that will work for us.
I feel 80,000's a little high, Kurt.
Well, that's why I'm asking.
And I
What's
understand
your
what you're doing, and I think it's kind of awkward for the applicant.
You want us to come with a number?
What if we said 55 or 60,000? I mean, that's more than.
How about, I mean, it's hard because I'm a business guy, and so you always try to split it in half. It's the negotiation tactics. But I don't want the dollar amount to say, hey, this is the square footage. I think we're looking at park, we're looking at the ground. But if we came
But I
up with.
also say that, you know, if, you bring up a good point, if I take away the tot lot, because it's not required, if I put a pavilion in there, right, I could cut that in half, right? A pavilion doesn't cost as much as the tot lot and the ring and the softball and all that kind of stuff. So you can, I think I'm being generous as it is. You know, I'd be happy to go up to 55, but I don't know if it's,
What's
if it's
the rest
worth
of the
much
council?
more
I mean,
than that.
I mean, if you're asking, you know, if you're kind of trying to, if everyone's to say, Kurt, what's your number? I think I could probably be flexible or workable at 65. I mean, I'd love to be at 68 to 70, but probably 65, I think, is where we're kind of trying to meet more in the middle.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the council.
I just like Kurt negotiating all this, for me, to be honest. I'm enjoying it.
The field.
For my negotiation skills, meet in the middle, call it good.
Are we gonna meet in the middle at 41? Because that's where I started, right? My anchor's already back down to that end, your anchor's way up that end, so.
Well, we'll start at the 416, was what we paid for a park, and then we gotta add.
I'll go backwards the other way, Kurt. I like it, though. Sorry.
I think meeting in the middle is adequate. I agree with your valuation rather, Kurt. I think it was spot on. But I also agree with Dr. Smith, and that is we need to have some aspect of reasonableness here. So, I think what we're doing right now is good, coming up with a number that's reasonable both to you and both to us. It's not prudent for us to undersell for the citizens of Highland. And I think we've done that in the past, and I think that's been a mistake. And I don't think we should repeat that again. But I think your evaluation is good, and I understand your point. I think we need to come to a number here.
Can I just make a point? We did something stupid when we said we will build the park ourselves because we cost us.
That's a harsh word.
No, looking back, hindsight's 20/20.
How about silly?
Silly or stupid, whatever. But it cost us $100,000 to $200,000 to do that.
No, I think the bid came in, they were at 550.
Yes, but we didn't include in the bid our costs for the construction plans, right?
Correct.
So that puts it, in my mind, between 100 and 150 for a park that is what we actually paid for something that we would have gotten a nicer park had we let the developer develop it.
But we've also equated that here at the 314. We put the.
So I don't think we can use that as a hammer then.
No,
and say,
I think we've given, you know, we've been fair at the 314, saying that's the entrepreneur value versus what we paid it. I mean, the city, if we went and put it in, we were at 416. We are giving a value towards what they can do. That's where the city came up with 314.
You're also balancing the original proposal with townhomes and so forth versus this, which is more single-family lots. So the whole thing is a negotiation, right? So if you're hearing from neighborhoods that say, hey, we'd rather have this type of single-family home on a lot, you know, what's that worth? Do you want commercial here? What's that worth? I mean, it's all part of everything.
Well, I agree. We, as a council, when they came in with townhomes, it was turned down. I didn't want to have 6 lots here. I think we were trying to do 5 or 4. I mean, you have to understand at the time, that I didn't win that vote. It was a 3-2 vote, and they got the 6 lots. I was hoping to have 5 lots, I think is what the motion was, and so.
But you bring up a good point here, because as this project's evolved, the density has decreased remarkably. And so I think there's been a lot of compromising so far. And I personally would support, I understand where you're coming from, Kurt, and you know, I agree with most of what you say, but I think we shouldn't go any more than 55,000. I would like to see this money be used, elsewhere in the city, preferably Wild Rose Park, because the people there that are gonna be paying this to the developer are gonna be using that park. I just think, at this point, I think we need to make a motion and move on, because we've really, the developers have come in, I mean, we're in the second developer now, and we reduced the density dramatically. I think we want a nice development, we want things, but at the same time, I think you need to make some sort of profit, right?
Correct.
That's how this works. And so, I wouldn't charge any more than $55,000, and I think you're comfortable with that?
I am.
So is that a motion?
I'll make a motion,
So,
yeah.
so this motion will need to include, if we want to change the, as written, from the side setbacks from 5 to 10, and then the amount. Other than that, it's the same. I believe that's what we've discussed.
So I can make a motion if you'd like. Okay, I move the city council accept the findings, and I'll put the stipulations you've talked about at the end. Accept the findings and approve case, PD 20-01, a request for a major amendment to Fairfield Cove PD district located at 10272 North, 4800 West, subject to the first 6 stipulations recommended by the Planning Commission, with stipulations 5, 7, and 8, as recommended by the staff, but at the same time making the change from $51,683 up to $55,000 that will be paid in lieu of open space development in the park, and also to change the setbacks on the commercial from 5 to 10 foot from the property line. Does that cover everything?
I think so.
Okay.
Is there a second? There is no second. So is there another motion?
Before I make this motion, would you be acceptable at $65,000?
It's too much. It's just too much money.
So do you want us to deny it?
That's completely up to you. Because I just think that's too much money. Would go to 60.
I'm sorry, what?
I'll go to 60.
I appreciate you.
60 would be in the middle between 40 and 80.
It would.
Which is where he started.
Can I also say, like, a point also is that not only has he negotiated with the density, but also there's the fact that he took out the drive-through, which would have been a point in his favor when the residents asked him to take out the drive-through. And I think every resident that I've talked to at least has said that he's been really great to work with. So I feel like that's a point in his favor also. So, I would be comfortable with the 60 because of those 2 factors also.
So is there a motion?
I'll do the same motion and change it from 55 to 60.
Stephanie's, you're comfortable with that?
So it's the exact same motion, moving to 60,000?
Yes.
And the setbacks from 5 to 10 feet.
And I would second that one.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Are we ready for a vote? Aaron, you driving? Okay, the polling has started. Thanks.
Suspense is killing me.
You have all the time you want.
This is to approve 60,000 with a 10-foot setbacks.
Side setback.
And all the other stipulations by the Planning Commission. Yeah.
Okay. Passes 4-1.
I do want to go on the record. You did, all the residents said that you worked with them.
I've been
And
to
I
the
want
golf
to tell
course,
you,
yeah.
thank you, Brittany, when you brought up, I do agree, I appreciate, we don't hear from very many, developers, the residents were all in favor, that, I understand there might be some benefits there, but they mentioned how fair you were, and so that really weighed for me to say, I want to be fair to you.
Thank you very much, council. Appreciate your time.
Okay, that was the first of 3 relative to this project. So Tara, let's go with the item 6.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. So this property is the one we just talked about at 10272 North, 4800 West. The applicant is requesting a preliminary plat approval for a 7-lot subdivision. So this is the same property location we were just talking about. On May 21st, 2019, City Council approved a PD district with 6 single-family homes and 1 commercial lot. On today's date, City Council approved the amendments to the commercial district to be more single-family traditional lots with the fee in lieu. For Phase 1 of the preliminary plat will include the 6 residential lots in the rear of the property. The setbacks conform to the proposed PD district that was approved. Minimum lot size is 8,444 square feet. This meets the requirements, so the PD district access will be from 4730 West. And then the recreational area is the fee in lieu that's just approved. For Phase 2 will be lot number 7. That will be the commercial district. That will be along North County Boulevard. The site plan will be reviewed at a later date when the site plan is turned in. Access will be from North County Boulevard, and UDOT will review the access when they turn in the site plan as part of their pre-application process. As one of the stipulations for the PD district amendment, was from Planning Commission to include a 29-foot parkway detail. The applicant did submit the 29-foot parkway detail for council to consider. This conforms to the stipulation. DRC was on March 30th, 2020. 1 resident did attend the meeting. We did the appropriate notices for Planning Commission. No written correspondence has been received on the preliminary plat. The correspondence has been for the PD district amendments. Planning Commission held a public hearing on April 28, 2020. No residents communicated on the preliminary plat for this. The commission voted unanimously to recommend approval, subject to the 6 stipulations. And for your recommendation and proposed motion, the applicant is here to address any questions.
Any comments on that? Okay. So this, again, actually, this is not a public hearing. So we can have discussion or a motion. Any comment?
I'll make a motion because I think we beat this to death. Okay, I move that the City Council accept the findings and approved case PP-20-03, request for approval of the Wild Rose Plat B preliminary plat, subject to the 6 stipulations recommended by the Planning Commission.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So motion by Scott, second by Kim. We are ready for a vote. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, my voting just
Died.
kicked out, so I'm going to do a verbal yes.
Is your voting working, Kim? So that gets approved 4-1. All right. Next item is action park improvements requested for Wild Rose Park. This is not a public hearing. Tara, you have that.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and City Council. So the Wild Rose subdivision, they are proposing the fee that was just approved of $60,000 to be utilized in their park, the park adjacent to their subdivision. It is a city park. This is the location of the park on Utah County parcel maps. The residents are proposing for council to consider to utilize the fee that was just collected to repair the trail, which is the red square box on the, yeah, you can see it, the red square box on the site plan. Add a new trail, which is the red line. Remove some apple trees. Add a pavilion with 2 picnic tables and add a shade tree. Add some shade trees actually throughout it. The fee in lieu collected from Wild Rose PD District is $60,000. G. Brown Design, did do an initial estimate cost of improvements for you to consider of $64,855.23. The cost of construction plans and bid documents is estimated at $4,000. This would bring the total to $68,855.23. Council will need to determine if utilizing the funding collected from Wild Rose PD would be in the best interest of all of Highland City to make these improvements as requested from the residents in the Wild Rose subdivision. For the fiscal impact, the estimated cost would be about $68,855, and the fee just collected was $60,000. So it would be in excess of the fees that we just collected. For your recommendation, staff is recommending that the City Council direct the Parks, Trails, and Tree Commission to work with Wild Rose residents and provide a recommendation to staff regarding the changes to the park, and have the Commission provide a recommendation regarding review the proposal of Wild Rose residents and meet with Wild Rose residents and make a recommendation to Council.
So there is no specific urgency tied to this, getting this done in any particular time frame. Is that correct?
I don't believe so.
No, because we won't collect that till recordation,
Which is how far out?
probably a couple of months down the road, at least.
3 months. So we really have at least 3 months.
Then, once it's collected, then it's, you know, you have as much time as you want to take.
Right, so we wouldn't have, so we have 3 months to take before we, yeah, you're,
And I also want to say, going along those same lines, is I don't want to leave the residents hanging out in the cold, because, you know, I promised that I would fight for this and keep this going down there. And I know I could do those improvements for the $60,000, not the 68, including the construction drawings and everything else. So please keep that in mind. I know it's more burden for me, because it's easier for me just to pen the check and walk away, but I know I can do that for that amount of money.
okay, thank you. Discussion on staff's part. Or not, on council, not staff, sorry. Any comments, discussion?
Well, it sounds like we want the Park, Trail, and Tree Committee, Open Space Committee, and different things to look at this, and I think that makes good sense. And I think that you probably should meet with them as well. And I think that's a good idea. I'd just like to go ahead and make a motion, if we can. Because we're just basically referring it to another group to look at it, and they're gonna come back with the recommendations, right?
Right.
Okay. So I move that the City Council direct the Park, Trail, and Tree Commission to, 1, review the proposal by the Wild Rose residents and meet with them and discuss it, and 2, make a recommendation to the staff on park improvements in the Wild Rose Park. And the third stipulation is I believe that the developer should be involved as well.
He's made a motion, we'll see if there's a second, then we can take his comments.
Second, we can have once there's a second, we can have discussion.
We can have discussion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Right, you?
Yeah.
Okay, Kim, second by Kim, motion by Scott, discussion.
Do we feel that we need to give any, you know, do we want to just give this direction to the Parks Tree Commission? Do we want to say, hey, we're looking to have the whole 60,000 go there, that's what they have a budget of? Do we want to do we just want to wait for their recommendation back as a council? I mean, do we want to give any guidance to the Parks Parks, Trail, and Tree Commission? What type of guidance do we want to give them?
What guidance would you give them?
I would just want to make sure they include all the residents, because we've seen before where, you have a resident or a group of residents who say they speak for everybody, and that's not always the case. So I would say just, yeah, make sure all the residents are involved, but, yeah, and consult experts about the trees, the orchard. Worry about the orchard.
I agree with that.
I would do that because if, my dad retired and then had a 40 acres of, or at one point in time, even 80 acres of orchard. That's a lot of work. And I know that periodically he had to take out trees and put them up again. And my understanding is these trees have been there for quite a long time.
60 years.
So what we are asking the Parks, Trail and Tree Commission is to look at the orchard that is there in the Wild Rose, open space area and say, hey, what would you do if we took this out? Is that what you're mentioning there?
Yeah, the current proposal says take half of it out, but personal opinion, with some degree of expertise, because I did go out and slave a little bit on my dad's farm. I was an adult at the time, but, you know, trees are a lot of work. If they're really old, it might not be worth keeping them. It might not make sense to keep them because they're more work and trouble than the fruit that they produce.
Rob
Yes. Rob.
To the point of our earlier discussion regarding the open space district, as part of this, I believe this is the new residents in this residential subdivision that's getting approved are likely going to be using this park. If that might be a good thing to include in the reports showing that how this ties those two together and what the benefits are, just if that's something that the council wants to consider, to include that as part of the researching and discussion.
So amend the motion to include looking at how the new homeowners would benefit from this park directly.
I would make that amendment, that have the Parks, Trail and Tree Commission look at how that would benefit those new 6 homes to be part of this park and to come back with recommendations or how that does work or if it doesn't. And then also, I think we need to get some legal counsel if we have a problem, you know, because I assume if we're looking to do that, we'd also like to maybe do something with open space or not. Now the Parks, Trails and Tree Commission don't have anything to do with that, but, you know, look at the orchard area, look how it benefits, if this money we're using does benefit the Wild Rose and how those residents would benefit from that doing that.
So is that an amendment?
So he's making a motion to amend the current.
And I'll second the amendment.
That was my epistle.
That was a kind of an epistle.
I gotta quit doing epistles.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I think we also need to make sure they're working with staff to see what trails are already included in our trail, proposal so that we are, efficient with the way that we use our trail money.
Exactly. So the two of the improvements that they proposed was fixing current trail and whether or not that should be part of this particular money or not when it's already an existing trail and we have an obligation to fix it. That's worth talking about.
So is that amendment to the amendment?
Well, we haven't, you seconded it.
I seconded his amendment.
I didn't know he was doing it.
So you want to restate your motion in non-epistle form?
Under 100 words.
In bullet form?
So the amendment would be is that the Parks, Trail and Tree Commission look to see how the money, if it goes to the Wild Rose open space, benefits also the new 6 homes going in and give us a report back how they see that would benefit.
Okay, and anything else?
And Brittany's, your recommendation was? Just include the residents,
make sure
all residents are also notified and invited to participate in those meetings.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And so that's been seconded. What we're approving now is an amendment to Scott's original motion.
Which I forgot what it was.
We're just giving better.
Stephanie has the motion written down, I am sure, or can listen at the recording. So we're voting on a motion to amend the current motion, which then we will vote on. So I will just do this voice vote, okay? All in favor of the motion to amend the motion to include the two additional items that Kurt mentioned, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That was unanimous. Now we're voting on the amended motion, which is these stipulations plus the two that Scott brought up and the two that you just approved on the amendment, motion.
So does that need to be re-seconded?
No.
Okay.
Scott made the first motion, and.
I seconded the amendment.
He seconded the amendment, Scott
Okay.
seconded.
Okay.
Scott, we made an amendment, Scott seconded the amendment. Scott made the first motion, and I believe Kim, sorry, I am so sorry.
So,
5:30, meeting at the trail.
okay, so we're voting on the amended motion, the final amended motion for action item 8.
So are we doing this electronically? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Okay, we're done. And that's unanimous. Awesome. Okay. We've only got a few more. We're 2/3 of the way done with that. Thank you
Thanks.
for coming. You know, there's an obligation to stay through the whole thing after you've been here for an X period of time. That's part of your penance. You should have included in the 60K, right? You have to stay to the rest of the meeting. All right, so, Tara, or,
Yes, Todd is.
Todd is handling item 9. Request by Highland City staff to amend section 3-4902 and 3-4903 of the Development Code related to
Isn't it the
ozone.
sewer easement?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, sorry, I skipped the sewer easement? Okay, sorry, I was excited. We're on item 8.
Mayor, Council, this has come up because we've looked at the sewer project for 9600 North. 9600 North, we are we're upsizing the project to accommodate the Boyer property. Originally, you can see there in red is our current alignment for where our lift station lifts the sewer to the intersection of Canal Boulevard and SR 74. We originally had designed to go in and upsize all of that sewer. It's through people's side yards, through neighborhoods. Then we started looking at other options and decided if we just extend the force main down SR 74 a short distance, we can keep all of the sewer upgrade in 9600 North. You saw my email today. I did a little bit of clarification on this, but I have met with the Robinsons many, many times. Today, I think, marked the 6th time that we have met and gone over this. They are in agreement with what's before you now. We did a final revision, I believe, last Thursday with them. I dropped it off today, so they have the exact copy that is in front of you. But it is saving us some money, but what it does is, how this works both for us and for them is they have asked that we match the road improvements that they have done in American Fork along this section in Highlands. Now, what that means is that it wouldn't follow the standard that we have from Canal Boulevard going north of the Parkway detail. But it does.
So they want to match the park detail on the opposite side of the road.
Across the street.
Not only across the street, but what they've done in American Fork just south.
Okay.
So you've seen their new development. I didn't take a picture of it, but if you drive down there, their new development is basically an 8-foot planter strip, 5-foot sidewalk. Across the road, we actually have a smaller planter strip, but it's an asphalt trail type improvement. So basically what they're trying to do is match what's south, but it looks very similar to what's across the street.
So so I understand the section, is it, so I know where Canal Boulevard, are you saying from Canal Boulevard to down
Yes.
Where the red line's
The
at would be
9600.
matching that.
Oh, where-
96 to Canal.
Where the blue line is where our force main would be, and that's where the Robinsons' property is. Basically, where that blue line is where they would want the 8-foot park strip, 5-foot sidewalk. Where, can you see the blue line on there? Yeah. So that's basically what they're asking.
And then
Because
what-
everything south of there is already developed on their property.
And then what we're removing is, we're doing the blue line, by doing this, we do the blue line, we don't have to put the red line in.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Save a lot of money.
Yes. We're saving the city, quite a bit of money in the sewer fund by doing this. We also feel like moving forward, it's much easier to maintain. We're not in the backs of lots. You know, if we had an emergency right now, we'd be tearing up people's yards trying to fix that sewer.
So is there, right now, you're sewering some of the homes that are adjacent to the red line using that?
Yeah, so that sewer would remain in service, but it is just for the homes and local
So
subdivisions.
it's local, not,
Yeah, we wouldn't have a major sewer trunk line that feeds all the Boyer property going through those homes by doing this. So this is the easement that we have proposed, with the Robinsons. It's a 20-foot easement. We actually can construct, the green line is the sewer line. We can construct the sewer line in the current, SR 74 right-of-way. We just can't, we don't have the room for equipment. We have to get that 20-foot easement. The 20-foot easement will remain. It'll be, you know, a perpetual, ongoing easement that we can get in and maintain. If and when they develop, then they actually would do a little bit more dedication, and that sewer line would for sure be in the right-of-way. And then we would just have that, sewer easement remaining with their development.
so, for me, you've got an 8-foot parkway between the road and the sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk.
Curb and gutter and the sidewalk, correct.
And then after the sidewalk, is there a little bit of space where they can build a fence, or is it?
So future development, they would do that. Right now, the only thing that is there is the curb and gutter. So curb and gutter, and then it's just, weeds
Right.
and goes up to their field fence. So right now, they have some animals in there, but we would just build that sewer main right under their fence, basically.
So we'd have to take their fence down?
Their fence would be, so if you read the agreement basically says that we will remove their fence and put it back up on the 20-foot easement line during construction. And then when the sewer line goes in, we would move that back to the original location.
So let me just ask a couple of questions. So the parkway detail would look like it does in what they're developing through American Fork. And I don't have a big problem with that, because when you hit Canal Boulevard, it's gonna widen up, because most people don't think they're in Highland till they're up there anyway. This is kind of an adjacent question, but when I was on the council before, and American Fork annexed the property to the east with their irrigation pond, we purposely kept the parkway in Highland. But it seems like the only time it gets maintained is if American Fork does it. Because I've seen them up there with their crews at times maintain it. Do we maintain that little area?
We do.
Do we?
Yes, yep.
Because I've seen American Fork maintain it. And the other question, this is kind of off the subject just a little bit, but there are decorative lamps along that street that were put in with that irrigation pond that have not been functional for 10 years. And I understand it's because the copper wire was still at them or something when I was on the council before, but this is just, because we're gonna make it look nice when we come into Highland, and we're talking about the west side, but on the east side, is there some way we can get those lamps working, or can we eliminate them, or, I mean, it's just kind of silly to have them there and they haven't worked for 9 or 10 years.
Well, I can
Yeah.
talk to Ty and find out what the problem is.
Yeah, I understood because somebody came and stole the copper wire out of them or something, is what I was told, but it'd be nice to get them going again, because it'd be a very attractive entrance.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
have money in our streetlight fund. I'll have to take a look and see what the cost would be to fix them.
Because they haven't been functional forever, and I drive up that way all the time, so just
Okay.
something to think about. It's kind of adjacent deal.
Yep. So that is the easement. This is kind of the view. This shows that if you look on the right side there, it's a very small, and those are the streetlights we're talking about, so we'll look
Yeah.
into those. But, this just kind of shows the undeveloped side on the Robinson side, and then, the trail and the very small parkway, park strip. On the opposite side, what they're proposing is an 8-foot park strip with a 5-foot walk that would match what's south. And then once you hit Canal Boulevard, then obviously it opens up, and then you have the Parkway detail on both sides. So we feel like we've gone back and forth with the Robinsons and feel like we've come to a spot where it's a win-win for both parties. They're happy with the agreement, and we are too. And if you have any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think that's fine. Thanks for your work on this.
Yeah, you bet.
The Robinsons are good people, so.
They are. Oh, whoops, I went too far.
Mayor, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move the city council approve and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement with Pat Robertson.
I'll second that.
Moved by Kurt, seconded by Scott. We're ready for a vote. If you want to go to the next slide. And we're done. That passes unanimously. Now we are officially 2/3 done with our agenda. Item 9. Is that yours, Tara, or is it? Okay. Do you want to wipe the mic?
Yeah, I do.
We know the mic's working.
Wait, before she begins, Nathan, is there other areas in Highland that have a PO zone, or will this affect other areas, or is it only one specific area that it affects?
It's only one specific area up in the north.
Is
No,
it-
there's two.
Is it, is
There's
it,
two.
Two, that's
is it
right,
only
there's two.
property that Patterson owns?
So it's,
Oh, there's two.
Okay, then I can
Yeah,
vote on it. I
there's
just want to make sure if I have a conflict.
yeah, and then the other one was, north of the one we just approved for Wild Rose.
Okay, so this will be consistent with helping out the whole city, so.
So, excuse me, would you explain that again? It's the property that we've approved up on Highland Boulevard, and where is the other PO zone?
So the other one is, so,
Just north of-
Ashford, it's, so the Ashford Assisted Living,
Oh,
and then
okay,
the.
it's just north of
that.
what we just approved with,
Yeah,
okay.
right by
Okay,
the
I
trail.
understand
And
that.
then the other one's the Patterson by the storage units,
Now,
right?
the one north of Wild.
Well,
Just south of Ashford.
Just south of
Ashford.
A-
That's
yep.
already,
That's PO.
That's, yeah,
that's
and they're,
PO, but they're already developed, right?
yeah, they're
almost
developing
done.
now. They pulled the
Um,
permit, and I think, I don't know where they're at in the
They're-
building
yeah,
permit process,
They're
but,
getting there.
Yeah, they're, so that one's planned out. That plan, it couldn't substantively change anyway, right?
mm-mm.
Okay.
Okay. So for your background, the PO district was approved in 2003. On December 3rd, 2019, the city council approved an office warehouse as part of the zone. That's that one on Long Highland Boulevard, the Patterson property. For your analysis, we'll go to the amendments. Office warehouse use was reviewed by the city attorney and determined to be compatible with the zone. In land use, it is better to have a list of permitted, not permitted, or conditional uses instead of leaving it open-ended, which is what we're going over with the proposed amendments. Oh, you can't see that. So in section 3-4902, under conditional uses for the PO zone, we will be removing number 8, which will leave it more open-ended, and just leave it as 7 office warehouse with the other previous, uses. And then for 34903, under prohibited uses, we'll be removing option 1, and then revising number 2 as it is currently to number 1. Planning Commission and we did the appropriate notification for Planning Commission and City Council. We have not received any correspondence on this proposed amendment. We held a public hearing with Planning Commission on April 28, 2020. No residents spoke about this proposed amendment, and it was voted unanimously by the Planning Commission to recommend approval. And then here's a recommended proposed motion.
So can I ask a quick question here? So on December 3rd, we approved an office warehouse. And in our discussions, it seemed like our PO development code at that time would allow that.
Yes.
So now we're going back and putting it in the code. So I'm
So-
missing something here. It seems like we could approve it from the way it was written before, but now that it's approved, we're gonna change the code saying it's in there. So is this just a cleanup issue, or?
Well,
Are
it's
we gonna
really
do-
removing number 8, and we
Yeah.
thought we would make sure we add the office warehouse just for additional clarification. Number 8 left it more open-ended, is determined by planning commission and city council. So this will help mitigate potential future applicants coming in saying, well, again, you did this, or leaving it open-ended.
But
And-
it seems like the only possibility for that would be in 2 spots in the city. Is there
Unless somebody rezoned, and then they came back, and then they would argue that if we left it open-ended again.
So this opens up that we could put office warehouses and other places if they were rezoned for PO. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we don't have office warehouse as a permitted use in residential, any of the residential zones. I'd have to double check the CR and C1, but I'm pretty sure it's not a permitted use in there.
I guess the other question I have is, why do we want to permit these?
Because we
But it's
already
already-
did.
Yeah,
Well, I
it's
know
already
we
been
already did,
established.
but we already did under, because I was told repeatedly that we had to approve it because it was already in there. But we're just trying to clean up the code now, is that what I understand?
So it's
Yeah.
so that, because there's a potential for something else we haven't thought of.
That would
Right.
come in under A,
Right, so it
section A.
says, or other types of professional services which the
Yeah.
planning commission, city council determined to be compatible with the intent of the zone. So we're taking away from the planning commission and city
Ambiguity.
and saying,
Yeah.
it doesn't, this is what it is. You'd have to explicitly change it, right? But it was a source of contention because it was
Ambiguous.
it was ambiguous, and it was clear from the attorney as we talked to that the office warehouse was compatible, but residents didn't feel it was, and so there was a lot of friction. Well, we've already established that it's allowed, and we're just saying, we don't want any other future confusion as to what may or may not be allowed.
So
Yeah,
I just
so-
am a little worried that this allows office warehouses in other places.
It will.
And that
Anything
was
with
quite
Yeah.
anything with a
unpopular.
PO so as we look on Highland Boulevard, I guess this is a question you had, that you bring up. So if in Highland Boulevard, that's our PO district, they can then come in and be office warehouse along Highland Boulevard, because I understand that if that's PO, office warehouse is approved. The question I think we also need to ask, since we already approved it in a PO district, does that not also mean that we've already approved it? Does that make sense? We already approved
Yes.
the offices on December 3rd. In a sense, we already said that that is gonna be that, because they always could go point to those office warehouses
Yeah,
in the
there's
PO
a
district.
precedent.
Am I thinking right, guys?
Yes, no, that's correct. Go ahead, Rob.
To address that, you could theoretically take out office warehouses as an approved use. It would leave the existing ones as a legal non-conforming use, entitled to be continued under the non-conforming use statute. You absolutely should remove number 8. That is, because you're dealing with conditional uses, conditional uses are under state law, a yes, not a if we feel like it. So that kind of discretion is it's not advisable. But for office warehouses, you could theoretically remove it if you're really concerned about it. It wouldn't change the effect on already approved plans. On the other hand, I guess you could get someone complaining that, well, they allowed it, but cities all the time take out uses from zones that they don't like, so.
Right, so what we wanted to do is monitor, we really didn't want to pick a fight with the property owner, with this. So if there's an expiration of 6 months, and I think you get 1-year extension, right? Or another 6-month extension on conditionals. Anyways, you have 6 months to get going. When that expires, then the whole site plan expires, then you can bring it out, take it out, and then it's really clear.
So Nathan, once again, let's go through where PO zones are currently. So right now, we have it at what is gonna be, the Highland Glen Assisted Living, is that right? Just
We have an
directly
office just south of that.
south of that, that office could have been a warehouse. Oh, and is there other zoning areas where, Because, Scott, I think you're bringing up, do we
Yeah.
want office warehouse over there? Because that's what we're really saying, where's our PO district?
Yeah.
So we're gonna pull up the zoning map for you. Tara corrected me, it's a 1 year, they have a chance to pull a permit, and then a 6-month extension.
So Patterson has until
A year,
December of
yeah.
next year, of this year.
No, and then they
Correct.
get another
Next
next
extension.
6 months, so it'd be
No,
really.
they asked for it. and then
They have
we
to
can
ask for
grant
it. But what our attorney Rob was mentioning, we could not allow office warehouse. They'd be non-conforming in the zone, but they were approved, as long as they keep moving forward in those steps, they stay
Yes.
approved.
Correct. Just go to the website, right? So zoning, so PO up on the, upper left, it's kind of, kind of yellow. No, sorry, my bad.
It's gray.
Orange round thing. Other side. Tara pointed out the other side. Finger. Yeah, there you go.
So
The entire area around the warehouses,
Yep,
what are they called, Highland Storage?
exactly.
So everything around Highland Storage, is there an other area, Tara, in Highland where this is at?
The one that's already been approved as a site plan and is already built, basically almost built,
South of,
south of Ashford
Ashford.
Assisted Living.
What was the one that with this, the 6 homes and the 1 commercial, what zone was that?
that's a PD zone.
PD, not PO, okay.
Yeah, they can't put an office warehouse there.
No.
well, that's a custom.
Yeah.
No, they've already established their uses that you approved.
What is, so Apple Creek is trying to amend and they want to change their zoning to,
A PD district
PD,
also.
they want to go to PD, not PO.
Correct.
So when we did the elevated dentist, that was a PO,
Elevate,
That's an RP.
RP.
residential
Residential
professional.
Okay. So really, the only 2 are the ones that you talked about, one of which is fully developed,
Yep.
and the other which is, still has room to do stuff.
Yeah, I know there's definitely a vacant lot right in front of, the office, their storage sheds. But it's not very big, but yeah.
Unless someone makes an application to change that zone on some other property.
Right.
But we'd,
But
it'd be
it's
no
PO now.
discretion.
So what we're saying is you could put an office warehouse in there too, in that blank area. Is what we're allowing by this change.
If we don't make the change, they'd be allowed, because we had to agree to it.
Well, they're
in
allowed
December.
with the current one, but
Okay.
they couldn't proceed to another one.
If we pull out office warehouse, they wouldn't be able to.
Right.
Any other discussion? Nathan, do you have a recommendation on whether we should pull it out or leave it in?
Since you have a pending case, I'd leave it in, but that's just me.
Does our attorney have an opinion?
He has an expensive opinion.
We're already paying him to be here.
The slower he talks, the more expensive the opinion.
Right.
You know, it's by time.
Yeah. You only have 2 zones, and apparently there's still room for 1 more office warehouse on one of them.
Right.
I guess, I don't have an opinion one way or the other. I get what Nathan's saying, and that makes a lot of sense to me, but if you're really worried about an office warehouse going there, pull it out now. But then you might get the owner coming in and yelling at you all, so.
But we've already approved his. Yeah.
I mean,
He
for that
still
one
owns the
lot,
other
if
parcel.
I mean, that
the
was
plan.
an ordeal.
So, I mean, you're not gonna change what's already been approved, you're just changing, I guess, whatever's left,
Future.
yeah.
So I guess for the council, we have to consider, if there was a proposal for more office there, are we concerned enough to pull it out, or even concerned in other areas of the city to pull out the office, or was the office warehouse?
Personal office. There's only two areas of the city that have this particular zoning. One is the Highland Hideaway area. The other is south of, the assisted living center.
And then the rest that would come in, we'd have a little more control if either agreeing to it or not, because I assume others might come and try to do the same zoning.
Yeah, they'd have to go through a rezone process, and that's a legislative process. Then if I may, before you, make a motion, this is a public hearing item.
Oh, it is, all right. I didn't notice that. So I guess before further discussion, let's go ahead and open this up for a public hearing. Tara, is there anybody that wants to speak to this?
Wade is still connected,
Wade
if he
is-
would like to speak. Wade Hadlock.
I don't have any comments on this.
Okay, thank you, Wade. I see no one in our vast audience of chairs that would speak, so I am closing the public hearing and turning it back to council.
The only thought is, I know we had a lot of residents that were concerned by having office warehouse. I guess the way I look at it, we already have office warehouse. There's no other residents, where the other empty lots at, there's really no other residents across the way from it. And so the warehouses are already closer to the residents. Tara, there's nothing to the north of where the current office warehouses are approved that is still PO, is it?
Let me look at the map closer, one sec.
The planning commission voted unanimously to approve, is that right?
Correct.
So we're waiting for our eagle eyes city planner to,
So you have a church, remember where the church is? That's in the
Mhm.
yellow.
yep,
And then between there,
So there is an area there.
there's a little area there.
So there could be there and behind, and then as well as to the
south.
the other little south area.
Right. So there's one or two areas where they could put office warehouses in.
What's your thinking, Scott?
Well, I have a hard time with this one because there was so much consternation from the neighborhood about the office warehouse and a lot of negotiation, and they finally made it look like more residential, divided the building and different things. I'm just wondering if we want to put future councils through that again and again, because I think if it's in the conditional use permit, they'll just come and do it. And I'm not sure there'll be a lot of input. Is that right? If once it's in that code, they can just come and do it.
It's just like today, yeah.
Yeah. So it just allows them, so if they decide to do that, it's okay, because it's in the code.
As long as they meet the standards, that's correct.
Right.
And so it's right along where that cursor's at, yeah, was where it stops at. And then the other one is on the other side of Highland Boulevard, a little bit over. So that one, and then the other side as well, right there.
Oh, that's right, there could be another building go there too.
Correct.
Yeah,
It
that's,
looks like
It
that's
might be wise to pull it out, because like you said, the residents were not, we'd actually have the Bull River residents backing up to that other lot.
Right.
And I imagine there might be some concerns there, and it appears that other lot that would be across from, what's that subdivision that's up there, but up there on
French Country State.
French Country Estates, it might even be further, up there a little further, that other lot. Where's the church at in the map?
that green spot,
So the green spot, but the lot directly to the south of the green spot, if you move what's that spot there, the one?
That's the current development, right?
So that
That's been
one
approved.
is,
That one there.
that one's part of the PO zone, and
That's not part of what was proposed.
No.
No, that's
So there's
not.
another spot there and then behind.
Right.
So the one that was approved, there were those two smaller ones right in front of the,
Did
They
the
could put-
planning
there,
commission
yeah.
consider any of this? What was their, I understand, you brought up a good thing. They already approved it, but were they looking at other zones when they went through this?
No, they didn't get into this level of detail.
no.
I'm just uncomfortable putting
pull
the
it.
office,
Let's-
I just wouldn't
I'd
put it in.
pull it.
Pull it.
I say let's eliminate 8, but I don't think I'd put 7 in there. I think we're opening ourselves up to,
Yeah, so let's remove 7, and then we also remove 8. Is that correct?
7 was an addition, right?
That's the office warehouse.
Yeah, so just,
Just
So-
remove 8.
yeah, just include a motion of removing office warehouse as a conditional use. Then we'll write it like we're supposed to.
Do we need to also say that we're also eliminating the number 8?
Yeah, so just say as proposed with the addition of,
I move the city council accepts the findings as proposed and eliminates office warehouse and adopts the ordinance approving the amendment pertaining to section 3-4902 and 3-4903.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Ready to vote? And we're almost there. So the motion was by Kurt, second was by Scott. Okay. That passes unanimously. Item 10. Public hearing ordinance request by Highland City staff to amend multiple sections in the development code related to large animal shelters. Tara, is that you?
It is, thank you. So staff is proposing to amend multiple sections in the development code for large animal shelters. And for your background, on December 7th, 2004, council approved large animal shelters in the development code. The intent of the ordinance was to not require a permit unless it had electrical. And there was minutes included in the packet as well for you to review. The building official is requesting that the large animal shelter ordinance be revised. The code doesn't require a building permit and doesn't have height restrictions, and any one side can be 50% open. And so the building official is requesting us to review that. For the proposed amendments, the first one was following the ordinance of accessory buildings as far as sizing when you would get a building permit, excluding pole barns. And then we kept the same setbacks in the current ordinance. And then the height restriction of 25 feet, that follows along accessory buildings. And then the open design would be 50% on the longest side, which would follow the Kirby design that's demonstrated before you.
So currently, they don't have to have an open site, is that right?
They have to have 50% of one side.
Currently.
Yes, but it could be any one side, and
Could
so
be a
an
really
app,
narrow side.
yes, so an applicant's done that and they were satisfying the code for that.
So when I looked at this, it was, as written, the intent was clear, but you could circumvent the intent by following the letter of the law.
And this is just for if it's a structure 200 feet or larger, correct?
For the building permit, yeah. And then,
just for large animal structures,
Yes.
so it wouldn't apply to accessory buildings or things
not
like that.
accessory, yeah. So as previously mentioned, the code doesn't currently have any height restriction, and that was noted when we reviewed an application. We couldn't stipulate any certain height. For other cities, they have primarily more of distance requirements, like we currently had as well. For citizen participation, we did do the appropriate notices for planning commission and city council. We haven't received any written correspondence on this proposed amendment. Planning Commission had a public hearing on April 28th. They did vote unanimously to recommend approval on this. No residents made any comments.
So I assume this is coming about because we see a new structure going on 10-400. Can you share with us a little bit about the height of that structure, the size? You know, because it appears they're saying, hey, this came in, we didn't really have to get a building permit. Share with us a little bit about that structure going up.
So it's just going off of my memory, just because I was involved in the meetings, when they came in. I think it's about 28 feet. So it's about 28 feet, and I can't remember the square footage, maybe 8,000 or so. It's rather large, and then they did 50% on the smallest side. And so there was nothing we could really do because they were meeting the setbacks of everything, and there was no height restriction that we could say you can't go 30 feet, 35 feet, or anything.
So is that an animal shelter, or is it where they cure the hemp?
Yeah. So they're saying it's a large animal shelter
Okay,
for their horses.
just wanted to make it clear, okay.
I just want to say, I asked and they told me it was an arena.
Yeah, there's currently, if you, 2 homes down, I believe that's a riding arena also.
Mm-hmm.
So same owners?
Yeah.
So I assume that they maybe are thinking the same thing. Kim, did you actually?
I actually asked. I walk that trail every single day. I've seen it going up. It's huge. It blocks all the views. I have no idea how it was permitted. So I just happened to ask the person that was there on the property, and I said, hey, what's going on? And she said, yep, we're building a enclosed arena.
They talked to us, they said it was an animal shelter, not an
That's what our
arena.
code says that they need to say.
Yes, they knew
It's
how.
probably for giraffes. I'm sorry.
I suppose if it's a riding arena, you do have animals being sheltered in there when they're riding, right?
We'll say that.
But thank you for information.
But this tightens that up, so
I've looked at this pretty carefully, and I think you've done a really good job kind of tightening up this ordinance, because we really need to do that. And, especially as the city continues to grow and the open land gets developed. So I'd like to make a motion if people are ready. Oh, public hearing.
Yeah, public
Yes.
hearing.
after the public hearing. So, again, anyone in our vast audience in the room want to contribute? No. Anybody online want to contribute? No.
There's nobody online on the Zoom, and no one on YouTube.
All right, public hearing, it was opened, and I'm now closing it. So, Scott, you're ready for a
Yes, I move the city council accept the findings and adopt the ordinance approving the amendment pertaining to mobile sections in the development code for large animal shelters.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And so that was second by Kim. Motion by Scott. We're ready for voting. All in favor?
Kim, you almost beat me. I think we were tied.
I wanted to second that one. Oh.
Okay, we are done, and that passes unanimously. We're on to item 11, public hearing ordinance, a request by Highland City staff to amend section 10-102 in the development code relating to definition of a main dwelling unit. Tara,
So me again.
is that what the TA is for? TA
Yeah.
dash 20
So staff is requesting to amend 10-102 in the development code for, the definition of main dwelling unit. So on July 15, 2008, City Council adopted the ordinance for the definition of main dwelling unit. The building official is also requesting that we review this ordinance and revise it as well, because the definition doesn't clarify that underground walking paths cannot be used to connect the two structures, and that there's no width requirement for the breezeway, which could potentially create a trellis or any other smaller structure that can be removed. And so staff is proposing a minimum width of 6 feet, and then clarifying that the underground walking path is not permitted to count.
Do we have any underground walking paths?
I'm not sure. We just had an applicant come in here saying, well, why can't I? So this was another cleanup that we felt that needed to happen.
I know we have large underground, storage areas that could potentially be used to try to justify
Is
this.
this also take into consideration if someone's putting a breezeway to try to connect another building to say it's part of their main building? Is that one of the things we're
Yep.
trying to clean up?
Yep, so the breezeway, keep in mind, it still has to be 10 feet or less. But this actually puts that width requirement on there to create a true breezeway, instead of allowing someone to do 1 foot or 2 foot, or any kind of foot.
Though the concern is if it was wider, they would have it there and then tear it down and make a separate unit. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's the concern. If we don't put a width requirement, then they could easily remove it. So, as we said, they could remove it after a certificate of occupancy. So, citizen participation, we did the appropriate notification for planning commission and city council, no written correspondence. Planning commission had a meeting on April 28, 2020. They voted unanimously to recommend approval. No residents commented during that meeting. And here's your recommended and proposed motion.
Comments, motion?
We have, it's a public hearing, isn't it?
Public hearing too.
Correct. Okay, thank you for correcting me. Public hearing open. No one present, no one online.
No one online.
Public hearing closed.
Mayor, I move that the city council accept the findings and adopt the ordinance approving and amending pertaining to section 10-102.
Is there a second?
I had a question first.
Okay, well, okay, go ahead.
He was quick. He was fast, so I didn't get in quick. What is the rationale behind, not supporting an underground breezeway?
Right now, if someone had a, I don't know, let's say 20-foot breezeway underneath, underground, is that what you said, right?
Underground.
Yeah, so, it would look like it's two different units on the property, and the point of making the breezeway and connecting it is so that way you look like one structure and one main building.
Okay.
Any other? After a second, we can have further discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Kim, motion by Kurt. Any other discussion? Looks like we're ready to vote. That was a good question, Tim, by the way. I had the same one. Passes unanimously. Oh, sorry, in my opinion, that was a good question. All questions are good. That was good because I had the same question. All right, item 12. Todd, action, approval of an agreement with Utah Department of Transportation for the signal locations and access management of State Route 74, Alpine Highway.
Mayor, Council, this is kind of a formality. American Fork asked UDOT for a intersection to be approved on SR 74 down in American Fork. As part of that, we have never revised our agreement with SR 74 with the new Canal Boulevard intersection that we are doing. And so UDOT felt like it was appropriate to include us in that and just get ours taken care of. So basically what this is it's an intersection agreement and an ongoing access agreement along SR 74. We've always had one in place. This one is just revising it to add a new intersection in American Fork and add Canal Boulevard to the agreement. So that's the purpose of this. UDOT has asked us to bring it to council, get it approved. Once we approve it, American Fork actually has it slated on their next council agenda, and so I will get it signed and then get it back to UDOT.
So, Todd, let me ask one question. When they get all these intersections done, are they gonna make an attempt to kind of synchronize those?
So, currently, UDOT does not have fiber optics up 74, SR 74. We are actually accommodating that along Canal Boulevard, so we will have some conduits being installed with Canal Boulevard. So at least ours will be. And I don't know the extent of fiber optic through American Fork. I know that just through Highland, we do not have it up to SR 92.
Is there any plans to do that?
They're currently working on it. In fact, a couple of years ago, they actually tried to put it down SR 74 a little bit and tried boring, and it didn't go so well. So they actually, they stopped short of where they were trying to go. They were trying to make it down to 10400 and at least get that intersection on.
Right.
It currently is not, so.
I mean, I think that's kind of a good goal, though. It'd be nice to have all those signals
They're trying.
synchronized for
Yeah.
traffic flow, especially when you get more traffic coming in from Canal Boulevard.
So the new intersection in American Fork that is really pushing this agreement is the one, 700 North.
Is that by the cemetery?
Yeah, so 700 North is the road that is basically our only east-west connection that we have to go down to and across until Canal Boulevard comes. What they will do is they will extend that straight through. It kind of S-curves up, and it ties into the road just north of the cemetery. I think it's 740 north.
So is American Fork ever gonna finish 700 North and connect it across to the Alpine Highway? Do you know? if
That's when it's going to happen.
Okay.
So it got funding through the MAG process, I think 2 years ago. So I'm not sure exactly when the funds are coming, but basically this agreement is just out in front of that because they see it coming.
That's where the intersection is. So
Mhm.
it's on the north end of the cemetery.
Correct.
Yeah,
And
because
so you'll have a new road that dives off that hill and goes down and ties onto 700 North.
Because when UDOT did their road study, that was published in March 2017, they talked about them finishing that road in 2019, which was last year. Because I think that would be good, because you'd have two east-west corridors.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're proposing to do that. I don't know exactly the timing of that project. I know it is funded through MAG, so. But
I'm surprised you haven't asked the big question I'd be asking. You got fiber going down Canal Boulevard. Can Scott subdivision, Pleasant Hollow connect into it?
Well, that.
For our signal lights in our division, or?
That fiber is intended for UDOT and their signals connecting so that they can.
So it's only gonna be a UDOT.
Them.
What about lines for over there, is Ridgeview, am I thinking the Boyer property? Where are they gonna get their fiber? Do we need to be planning to make sure there's fiber going to that area?
You know what, that is, I'm sure that, you're gonna have Comcast in there, you're gonna have CenturyLink in there,
Where will they be pulling up from?
Well,
I don't, I'll be honest, I don't memorize where their
curious.
infrastructure is. They have infrastructure up, North County Boulevard, I'm sure, and they have it on this side as well. So, I haven't seen their plans. They wait until the subdivisions are to a final plat stage and approved before they'll even look at it and start designing, so.
So I understand from my friend at UDOT who works with the fiber optics, that these companies sometimes can piggyback on their line with the rent agreement.
They can,
Is that right?
you know.
And I think there's fiber optics that go up North County, and we'll have fiber optics across Canal Boulevard.
All of North County has UDOT's fiber in it.
So,
And
see,
in
they
fact,
could
the
piggyback
UDOT
on any of that fiber.
UDOT is currently, they're working on the fiber line from the mouth of the canyon to our intersection right here.
Right.
So,
And that will continue up to Fork, I believe.
uh-huh, yep.
They're taking fiber all the way up to the Fork, we can't get it here in Highland.
Well, they're paying for it.
Yeah.
That's
I
the
understand.
difference. They have money, we don't.
So this agreement is very, cookie cutter, very, boilerplate, that's the word I was looking for, so. Any other questions on that for me?
No. And this isn't a public hearing, right?
Correct.
I'd like to make a motion, if that's okay.
That is fine by me.
I move the city council approve and authorize the city administrator to execute the agreement with UDOT.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Kim, motion by Scott. Ready to vote? Oh, you guys were all fast. Done. And the result is it passes unanimously. Mayor and council staff communication items, there's future meetings list on the agenda. Was there anything else? communication-wise?
The other item we wanted, we're preparing one document, and we'll have that on the June second.
Okay, so,
You're preparing a document about what?
To discuss, the sewer lift station.
Oh, Victor View Sewer Lift Station, okay. Can I ask a question, Mayor?
sure.
As, Kim, Councilmember Kim Rodella and myself went walking over at Wimbledon, we noticed that, there were some residents that mentioned they received some notices. Did we send out several notices to, just only in Wimbledon, but I mean throughout the whole city, were there several notices sent out?
No, we only sent two notices out to Wimbledon.
Wimbledon, yeah.
If we're going to start looking at encroachment and dumping on city property and stuff like that, we need direction from council, because the last time we did this, we had that direction, then everybody complained, and then we were told not to do it, so.
So Tara, it appears that you sent the letters. Would you share with the council what you saw as an infringement and why the letters went out?
Yeah, so I received a code enforcement request for that area.
Was that a person complaining about the area? So it was a resident complaining?
Yeah, we got a complaint,
Yeah.
anonymous complaint.
Yeah, so, sorry, there's been a lot of code enforcement lately. So, those ones were, one of them was because they had branches and trees and other landscaping right along the trail. And we didn't have any kind of open space maintenance agreement, and cut trees and bushes like that are against the code anyway, so it's not just landscaping.
Okay,
And-
just on that one specific resident, so if that resident wanted to, they could come in, do a maintenance agreement, they'd have to remove the limbs off of the area that they kind of build up on. They had some, is it the bark?
Mulch, wood chips, yeah.
Yeah, wood chip or mark, would that be, if they had a maintenance agreement, could they put that down?
So I know it can't be any permanent structure.
Okay, so that's not permanent.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand, you know.
Currently, maintenance agreements are not allowed, so we cannot, under current code, do maintenance agreements with any new.
Oh, so that's something that's important. Maintenance agreements cannot be entered into?
Correct, the only time you do a maintenance agreement is if there's a physical reason with the property, we can't sell it. Example, sewer line, water line, something like that.
Okay, I misunderstood. I thought that any resident could come say, we'd like to maintain, open space area behind our home, and so that.
When did
So
that,
if it can
when
be
did that
sold-
change? I wasn't on the council then.
No, you weren't on the council. It was when when the council adopted the process to sell it, and it was done because does it make sense to go in and sell open space when the neighbor next to him just maintains
maintaining
it
Okay.
and gets it for free,
So
essentially?
that's something probably, maybe in a future council meeting would be good to maybe address, or not address, we can just look into it. So we have that one resident, they put branches, they had mulch, and then we could work out something there. The next resident they had was a pile of dirt.
They had a pile of dirt on the opposite side of the trail by the ditch. Speaking with the resident, their intent was to not fill in the ditch now, but once the ditch is abandoned, they were gonna fill it in.
So were they bringing the dirt in to fill it in?
Originally, talking to one of them, they said it was our dirt, and then talking to the other owner, she didn't say it was our dirt, so I'm not sure if they brought it in or not. But, staff did review, Josh did go out there and said it's not our dirt.
So we're fighting over dirt?
It's a pile of dirt.
Yeah, let me just make a comment. We've talked about encroachments on open space throughout the city. And I just think, and I think I'm echoing what, I'm hearing a little bit from Kurt. I think it's fine if we enforce it. It's kind of interesting that we decide to enforce it on a controversial trail at a time when the neighborhood's kind of wound up. So I guess I would feel a little more comfortable if you also enforced it in Beacon Hills or some of these other places. So when the residents complain, and I've had complaints too, and we can just say, hey, we're just enforcing it throughout the city. But, right now, we've enforced it just there. So I just think we have to kind of be careful and make sure we're doing it throughout the city.
Scott, if
Yeah.
somebody in Beacon Hills complained, then Tara would look into it
Yes.
and would do an enforcement. And in this case, there was a complaint made, and Tara looked into it, and it was valid. So it's not the city that's driving it, it's whoever complained.
And there has been other encroachment complaints from other various subdivisions as well that we've notified, so.
Well, I just think it's important to kind of, make sure we're doing it throughout the city. Because
Well,
it's easier to explain to people and say, hey, we got complaints throughout the city, we're kind of addressing these situations. And I think that's fair.
So,
You know.
as far as I know, if somebody complains, you don't turn the complaint down, right?
No, we go out and inspect it, and then if it's not valid, we're not gonna send a notice that's not valid.
Thank you, Tara. I mean, just curious, we just happened to be there, we didn't know, and that we had one of the residents share with us, and I asked, can I maybe see the letter that was sent, just so we understood what the issue was, and, just trying to be responsive to residents. The next thing is, Nathan, I understand, if there's nothing else on the notices, Nathan, I believe the Canterbury Circle tennis court / pickleball / basketball is now open.
That's correct.
Looks great.
It was open on Monday.
So one concern I did see when I visited there is the pickleball lines are light blue and the tennis court's dark blue, and so it's a little bit hard to see where we were. And I understand maybe that was the design. I don't know. When I visited with the residents that were there last night, they said, hey, it'd be almost nice to have 2 pickleball courts. Would that be on the north end where the basketball courts aren't? You put 2 pickleball courts there and maybe put 1 down by where the basketball, but they were just mentioning the lines were hard to see. But just, I think it's congratulations, we got those up and going. So.
Yeah. Looks nice. It does look nice.
It does. It looks really nice, brand new, and.
Anything else? Okay.
Just update, we're still, Spring Creek is still going, moving along, should have pavilion and stuff next week. We're still trying to do substantial completion by the end of the month, don't think we're gonna make that, but, June 12th, second week in June, they hope to have the playground in, or just everything done but that playground, so.
Did you say the pavilion's in? I haven't been over there.
Next week.
Next week.
So as an FYI, Corinne is working with Brian and the Parks Committee to do opening ceremonies for both the tennis court and,
We should,
Mountain
we don't
Ridge,
do this
or
very
the
often.
Spring
It'll be
Creek.
kinda cool.
And the council will be invited?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes. We want the rocks thrown at you, not at us. No, I'm just kidding.
Why would they throw rocks at us?
Well, too many people like pickleball now.
Oh, that's true.
Speaking of that.
That one.
One comment, going back to the park there, we don't have any signage there to say, hey, if you are waiting to play pickleball, I just know there's sometimes a common
We're
courtesy.
working on signage right now. We put a temporary sign up, yesterday that's just
Okay.
one of those cardboard, like a election sign. But we're working on the permanent signage now that'll